welcome to the race.
And the lights are out. Great start then.
The Moto2 champion steps into the team that's dominating the championship.
I'm Scott Mitchell from the race. We're here at Barcelona.
Sebastian Vettel is fighting for his career.
There has to be a title assault, and anything less will be a failure.
Oh, and a spin!
We lost the GoPro.
Hello and welcome to the race. This is the 2020 Super Formula Championship Round 2. My name is Sam Collins and I'm joined here in the virtual studio by Leigh Gorman. Leigh, good morning.
Good morning, Sam. How are you?
I'm very, very good. I'm really looking forward to this second round of the world's second fastest single-seater championship.
Indeed, it's actually been quite a bit of a wait. 4 weeks since the opener at Motegi at the end of August, and it's all going to come thick and fast from here on in. Lots of action already so far this weekend, Sam, but the main event still to go in a short while.
Oh, absolutely, and we've got some fresh names, some unexpected results, and a really challenging and interesting race circuit. It's a modern classic in motorsports in Asia, and Japan's, I think, one of the most recent and best additions to Japan's many motor racing circuit layouts.
Indeed, it is a circuit from that once hosted, well, twice hosted Formula One, and I think the lap records back in the Michael Schumacher Benetton days in 1994, 1995. It hasn't changed much since then, Sam. There's still lots of grass runoffs and gravel runoffs, and we'll see some moments from qualifying which were brought about by those runoffs. But definitely still a bit of an old school kind of circuit. Very quick, but very narrow as well.
Absolutely. Passing is possible. We've seen it in Super GT. We've seen it in Super Formula. You can have a really good race. You can get a run together. You mentioned the lap record. Michael Schumacher's Bennett on B194 from 1994 has the race lap record here on the-race.com. However, the outright lap record is still held by Ayrton Senna. Now, the Super Formula cars are a little way off that outright record, but they are quicker than the race lap record. So these are really quick around this beautiful circuit. But as you mentioned, it does bite back this track. And I wonder if anyone's going to get caught out today.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw some very, very quick times in qualifying today. As you mentioned, a little bit off the Formula One lap record from many years ago at this stage, but still relatively quick. As we saw Ryo Hirakawa nailed on a second pole position in a row, Sam. I mentioned at Motegi when he got pole and race win that, this could be the start of a championship charge, and it may actually be coming through. He really looks on form at the moment.
But there's some real disruptive elements, and we'll talk about that after the qualifying highlights, because we've got some new names in the field, and some of them are doing some quite unexpected things.
As we see in qualifying today, in Group A from Quali 1, it was Nick Cassidy who set the pace in that session, and it was actually Sasha Fenestraz who set a late lap to knock Yuki Sekiguchi out of the running in the later sessions. But it was a clean session early on. As you can see, it's actually quite a balmy day. It's only 21 degrees Celsius, quite dry. So no real threatening weather as we had last time out in Motegi. As you see, Cassidy had already set the fastest time, a 1:13.1 by there with Sho Suboi. setting a similar lap time as the flag came down. That meant, of course, Sakaguchi and Oshima were out of qualifying one. Disappointing for Sakaguchi, who's looking for a good result today after disappointment in Motegi. Group B, it was the Nakajima cars that were showing some pace as well. But also, we had a little bit of a surprise in Ritomo Miyata. The Super Formula Lights driver actually set the fastest time in that session, surpassing Tadazuki Makino late on. Let's see Miyata going top there. Miyata is actually sitting in for Kazuki Nakajima this weekend. Nakajima, of course, racing in Le Mans last weekend. And it was 3 drivers who were knocked out of Group B. And that was Takaboshi, and Yuji Kunimoto got knocked out as well, and also Nirei Fukuzumi, who drove a very, very good race in Motegi, taking 5th there, but he's going to have a difficult time this weekend, starting all the way down in 16th place. As the cars came across the line, it was Hirakawa, I believe, that actually set the time to knock Fukuzumi out of the qualifying session, as he came across the line there just as the flag came down, and Fukuzumi just missing out by only 0.03 of a second. But in Q2, the real shock is Miyata, of course, once again showing some great speed. The rookie, his first ever Super Formula weekend, he's doing great stuff in Super Formula Lights as well. But it was Nick Cassidy, his teammate, who actually fell out of the qualifying session in Q2. As we see the rookies really showing some very, very solid pace. And you can see that Hirakawa swapping times with Tsukakoshi. Kudai Tsukakoshi is actually back in this weekend, replacing Tatiana Calderon, who was also racing at Le Mans last weekend. And Toshiki Oyu, the rookie in his 2nd Super Formula round, showing some solid pace as well. He went through to Q3, while Naoki Yamamoto did not maybe the finest job in the world, but he was still just able to get through to Q3 as well. This was very much a solid session between the engine manufacturers. The odds nearly pretty much even between Honda and Toyota, which is not really what we saw in Motegi several weeks ago. And it was at this point Cassidy just fell out of the order, dropped down to 10th place, as his teammate, his rookie teammate Miyata, went 0.5 faster than him coming across the line. Disappointment for Cassidy. He did well from 11th on the grid at Motegi last weekend, but he's going to really want to stop this kind of middling form he is suffering in qualifying. As we see in Q3, it's a 7-minute session. There was only a brief gap before the cars went out on track, and once again the Nakajima cars were showing some very, very, very good pace as well, with Makino. Hirakawa really on a roll at the moment. He was running 4th in the final laps, as it was Makino showing some good pace. Miyata was there as well. Shasa Fenestraz, another rookie, also doing very, very, very well in qualifying, both last time out and this time too. But it was Hirakawa who set the fastest time late on, only to be beaten by Miyata. And then action, a Sho Suboi. I mentioned you get one wheel off the track and onto the grass, onto the gravel, you go straight off. And it was Sho Suboi who could not improve his time. He ended up starting from 8th place, and that really ruined his qualifying session. Thankfully, Sho Suboi went off early in the lap, so those who were ahead of him were able to finish their laps and actually set some times. Hirakawa was the only driver to make it into the 1-minute 12s in Q3, which was a session that, by the way, was almost half a second to 0.6 of a second slower than what we'd seen in Q2. Hirakawa qualifying on pole again. Ritomo Miyata taking 2nd in his 1st round. Sasha Fenestraz, his 2nd Super Formula round, taking 3rd. And that's actually points as well. Very important. 3 points for pole, 2 for 2nd, 1 point for 3rd place on the grid. And that actually extends Hirakawa's points advantage to 10 over Yamashita in the driver's standings at the moment. As you see, some disappointment there for the likes of Nick Cassidy and Sasahara and Sakaguchi, further down the field than he necessarily wanted to be.
Just looking down the starting grid there, Leigh. I mean, I was looking at, you can see the driver standings on your screen now. Miata, I was looking at this name and I sort of thought of an old British television advert, sort of talking about Accrington Stanley football team, because I was looking at it and half these drivers, who are they? You know, Miata, he's driven a race already today, right?
Yeah, he's driven one today. He drove one yesterday, and I think he's got another race after this one.
Well, I mean, he's going to be a bit busy. We saw another driver trying to do that earlier in the season, last round, and had to withdraw through heat exhaustion. Clearly not a problem for Miata here at Okayama. A little bit cooler, but he's going to be knackered.
He's actually going to be exhausted, but it's great experience. As I said, he's racing in Super Formula Lights. He has a huge advantage in that championship at the moment. They've had 5 rounds, and he's won 4 of them. So,
well.
And
I mean,
he is quite a way ahead of the next driver in the Super Formula Lights Championship, who's also racing in this race, by the way, and that is Sena Sakaguchi, a little bit further on down the field. But as I said, as you mentioned, several driver changes. Kazuki Nakajima, now a 3-time Le Mans winner, not taking part here. He is being replaced by Miata. That's a team's Toms. Kondo Racing, no Kenta Yamashita. He's been replaced, as I said, by Sena Sakaguchi. Kamui Kobayashi, who took another podium, yet another podium at Le Mans in the Toyota. He also is not here. He's been replaced by Yuichi Nakayama. He's a driver who's had about 10 or so Super Formula starts. And then Tatiana Calderon, also not here, replaced by Kurai Sukakoshi. Sergio Hete Kamara, not here. He's been replaced by Mitsunori Takaboshi. And, of course, Yuri Vips, still not here. Ukyo Sasahara, who's starting the opening round, he's been held on. And Charles Malaysia, not here either. His seat is still not being filled, so 19 cars for today's race.
Now, you mentioned round 1 there, Leigh, and there was a few people making their race debuts there. Tatiana Calderon, who's not here, was one of those. We can take a look back at what happened. Oh, it seems like an awfully long time ago now, but you can see the cars getting off the line there at Motegi, and it was, well, this isn't going to be the longest highlights reel, but it was a good return to racing for Super Formula after such a long break.
Yeah, Hirakawa leading from the off ahead of Yamashita and Fenestraz. There was an off there for Shou Suboi. Meanwhile, down in the field, there was battles between Fukuzumi overtaking Kobayashi and then chasing down Fukuzumi, while Kobayashi also lost out to Yamamoto. Both of them went down the field with damage. And this is where the race really hotted up. It was Fukuzumi challenging Sakaguchi. And as the latter's tyres really wore off in those very, very hot conditions, there was a collision between the two of them. Sakaguchi got a puncture, spun off into the gravel, and it ended with Hirakawa taking a relatively easy win ahead of Yamashita and Fenestraz, with Kazuki Nakajima taking 4th. Fukuzuki, the highest finish on Toyota, in 5th place. Great job by them.
It was a good return to the sport in these really difficult times. A lot of drivers struggling to travel from their various parts of the world to Japan to come and race in what is such a high level racing series. It's a real top formula. In fact, they used to refer to it as Japan Top Formula at some times. That's because Super Formula shouldn't be seen as a domestic Japanese championship. It's really a proving ground for young, upcoming Japanese drivers, but also some of the best foreign drivers racing over in Japan, because the cars are just so fast. They love racing them. They're lightweight, they're massive amount of power, big grip, but also it's great tracks and proper racing.
And you mentioned the drivers as well. A lot of people make the mistake, I believe, of considering this a junior formula. And it's really not. In some senses, it may be seen as that, but these are not just young drivers. You have a field that's got a wealth of experience. You do have the young drivers like the Fukuzumis and the Shou Subois who come into this field, but then they're also racing against ex-F1 drivers like Kazuki Nakajima and Kamui Kobayashi, other Le Mans winners in there as well. So, and you have drivers who are also competing in Super GT alongside that. So this is actually a really, really, really top field. Nick Cassidy in there as well, the previous champion. So this is actually really great proving ground. But one thing that has been embraced by Super Formula so far this year is a fluidity. Sam, it's particularly in the sporting regulations, and we've seen a little bit of a change this weekend, which I think you're going to be able to run us through quickly as a stand for this race as well. Lots of little changes coming.
Yeah, here we are, Okayama Circuit. There you can see that's the date today. It's a 51-lap race. There's a mandatory tyre change, so no zero-stop races. You're not allowed to change your tyres before lap 10, so you've got to go somewhere into the race. 8 seconds of the overtaking light system. I'll let you see that a little bit later. We'll talk about that. And no refueling. That's to try and minimise the number of staff at the races, just to keep that social distancing going on in the pit and paddock as well. Keeps costs down a little bit for the teams. Now, it was a couple of years ago now, I was sitting in a coffee shop somewhere near a large Shinkansen station in Tokyo, having a nice beverage with Kurashita-san, who is the boss of the Super Formula Championship. And he said to me, Sam, look, the way you need to look at this championship is this isn't Formula 2, but in Japan. This isn't Indy Lights. This is the equivalent of Indycar, but in Asia. Super Formula is its own competitive top-level series, which is why seasoned drivers like Nakayama, Kobayashi, Nakayama as well, Kobayashi and the others are all coming back and racing in that series to see out, not even to see out their careers. It's super competitive and also very prestigious to try and win a championship here.
This is a tier in Japanese motorsport that's already had 47 seasons. It's coming up to its 50th anniversary in a few years' time. It has had a lot of very storied drivers over the years. Michael Schumacher competed here, as did Ralph. I think Ralph was a champion in the 90s. Eddie Irvine used to race here. I believe Roland Ratzenberger raced here for quite a while. And then you're going back into the Satoru Nakajimas, who Satoru won the championship 5 times in the 70s and 80s. His son Kazuki, former Williams driver and current Toyota LMP1 driver. He still is an LMP1 driver for one more race. He's a twice champion as well. So there's a lot of really great talent to come through, and it is a series to be reckoned with.
It absolutely is. Well, we're going to be taking you over to live pictures from Okayama any moment. And Leigh, I think you're going to talk us through the starting grid here, because these single-seaters, you like the starting grid, and you've got cards with all the drivers' names and stats. And if you're wondering at home, does he actually have cards with him? Yes, he does, and they're pink. There you go. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe here in the run-up to the race. Leigh, take us through the starting grid.
Ryo Hirakawa there on pole, second time in a row, as Ritomo Miyata in the Toyota-powered team's Tom's car, second on the grid. Good job by him, with Sasha Fenestraz and Terasuke Makino third and fourth. Toshiki Oyu, another rookie, fifth on the grid, with Hiroki Ishira alongside him, while former champion Naoki Yamamoto is seventh. Sho Suboi eighth. He crashed in Q3. Tomoki Nojiri and Nick Cassidy are on row 5 of the grid. They were the first drivers out of Q2, while Sena Sakaguchi, the rookie, he is alongside Yuichi Nakayama, who's also coming back this weekend. Ukyo Sasahara still sitting in for Yuri Vips at Team Mugen. He's 13th place, with Kudai Tsukagoshi 14th. Yuhi Sakaguchi 15th, disappointed with that, as would Narefu Kazumi 16th, and Kazuya Oshima 17th on the grid, just ahead of Yuji Kunimoto and Mitsunori Takaboshi, who crashed in pre-practice too. He'll be looking for some good running today. And what's interesting really about the sessions earlier on, as I mentioned, Miyata has done very, very well so far in this weekend. He was actually fastest in Q2 as well. He was fastest in Group B of Q1, so he clearly has pace. It wasn't just one lap out of the box, and he was, just slipped it in. He's actually been pretty fast all the way through. Nick Cassidy, meanwhile, he was fastest in his group in Q1, but it just could not string it together in Q2. Unfortunate for him, as we see the rookie Ritomi Miyata getting interviewed there earlier on. 21 years old, Sam, and he's actually, believe it or not, a twice champion in Japanese Formula 4. For some bizarre reason, he won Japanese Formula 4 in 2016 and 2017. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. You do have a lot of young drivers coming through, and sometimes it's holding them back to gain extra experience is actually not necessarily a bad thing. winning. Sena Sakaguchi, as I mentioned earlier on, he is another driver filling in this weekend. He is currently racing in Super Formula Lights as well. He's second after 5 rounds. He's taken 1 win in that championship so far. Super Formula Lights also racing at Okayama this weekend. There's going to be 2 quite tired drivers when all this is done. And Ukyo Sasahara, as I mentioned, back for his 2nd round at Team Mugen, settling in place of Yuri Vips, the 24-year-old. Did a reasonable job, I thought, at the opening round of Motegi. Came home 11th place, had fresher tyres towards the end, but just couldn't actually find a way into the points. He was actually only half a second outside the points, which would have been a very good result for him. It's 2 times he's qualified 13th. He'll be hoping to make a little bit more from strategy and pace today. As we see, that is Miyata on the grid. He's going to be on the right-hand side of the grid. That'll be the left-hand side of your screen when we do actually get away from the line. Getting the final tending to from the engineers, getting his belts tightened up very, very, very securely, Sam. And that's actually quite important because, you know, you do not want loose belts in these cars. The downforce generated by them and the forces, G-forces, will give you one incredible bit of a chest bolt should your belts not be fully tightened.
Well, it's going to make you feel a bit sore because if you move around in the cockpit with those forces going on. As we saw Charles Leclerc doing one of the recent Formula 1 races in, I forget where it was actually, Barcelona. Here we are on board with Ryo Hirakawa round this Okayama circuit and into that distinctive opening right-hand corner. And as you go round this track, it's been the same layouts, 2.3 miles, 3.702 kilometers, same layout since 1995. Some brilliant corner names though. First corner is the first corner, that's why I call it that. Then Williams corner, the Moss S, the Atwood curve, and then on the long straight now down to hairpin corner, Leigh.
Indeed, it is absolutely, this is a very, very, very hard braking right-hander coming up, and it's going to be one of the key overtaking moments in this race. And we'll actually see the overtaking system, I think, used quite a lot down that back straight, Sam. You mentioned earlier on there was a slight change to it. What was that actual change that we're going to see in this weekend's race?
So on these cars, you'll see on the roll hoops, there are these bright lights that flash away as we come up through Mike Knight corner and the brilliantly named last corner of the lap for Ryo Hirakawa. There it is, the last corner, and you'll see the start-finish straight coming up in a moment. So what you'll see is the overtaking boost system comes up and it starts flashing. So all cars start off with green lights on the top of the roll hoop, and you'll see it when we go back to see the cars on the starting grid there, just below that onboard camera above the driver's head. You see that loop of lights. Now, when the race starts, they'll all be green. And that means the drivers have a certain amount of time of overtaking boost. So they press the button and it gives them a little bit more revs, a little bit more fuel flow limited cars, of course, and it boosts their power just for a certain amount of time. When that's happening, that light will start flashing really, really quickly. Then it'll start flashing slowly, and that slow flash is the time that they're not allowed to use it. And now there's going to be an 8-second gap between them using it and not being able to use it again. So it's recharge time. So they get a little bit more go on the overtaking boost system, a little bit less time between. Hopefully that will promote overtaking around this Okayama circuit. I suspect, as we're going to see the start time raced by the enthusiastic lady, we will see a lot more overtaking than we saw at Motegi. That's the nature of this racetrack, because you can have a few really well put together runs through that last sequence of corners in particular.
I think one of the other elements about this particular race, and we saw a couple of drivers taking pit stops at the opening round and were able to make hay where they could, because other drivers were suffering from tire fatigue, as it were, due to the excessive temperatures. As I said, it's actually only 20 degrees Celsius today, so we won't probably see that excessive tire wear today. But we will see some strategy in play with the mandatory tyre stop. And now, the national anthem of Japan.
that is always the sound of the start. Something good for me. It means there's going to be some great racing action coming up, and that's exactly what we've got here on the-race.com. Just got enough time to hit like and subscribe, and give me a moment to tell you about all the good stuff that's coming up on this channel and on the Hyphen Race going forwards. We've got not just this race today, we've got some more live coverage coming up. Esports coming up later today. That's worth looking at. It's the big, they've got an esports podcast as well. It's containing all of the big talking points in the booming worlds of motorsports, esports. There's a bunch of other podcasts as well. The Race F1's podcast, there's Formula E, it's MotoGP. Gary Anderson does a technical podcast. Bring back V10s, as Ed Straw says the words LaRousse and Osella rather a lot. Hidden Voices, Claire Cottingham looking at diversity in motorsport. We've also got British GT coming up next weekend, very soon, and Super GT. We've got weekend of GT coming up. Leigh.
Now, as we race through the grid earlier on, the drivers are going to get off momentarily. There's 19 drivers for this race, Sam, and from the back of the grid in his first race, the B-Max Motor Park, it is Mitsunori Takaboshi. Super Formula Lights driver currently as well. We'll see how he gets on. Yuji Kunimoto, 18th. That's a 1 minute 13.9. 17th on the grid. Disappointment again for Kazuya Oshima. He was 17th last time out as well as a 1 minute 13.9. Narei Fukuzumi from Team Dandelion. He's really going to be disappointed with that. He'll be looking for more points today, but it's going to be difficult from 16th on the grid with a 1 minute 13.7. Also 1 minute 13.7. Yuhi Sakaguchi for Team Impo. They were all knocked out in Q1. 14th on the grid, replacement driver Kukurai Tsukagoshi. He'll be sitting in for Team Drago in place of Tatiana Calderon, a 1 minute 13.6, while Ukyo Sasahara, as I mentioned earlier on, Team Mugen placing Yuri Vips, a 1 minute 13.5. Yuichi Nakayama in Team KCMG, a 1 minute 13.2, 12th place, just behind Sena Sakaguchi, a rookie driver for Kondo Racing, replacing Kenta Yamashita, is a 1 minute 13.1. Nick Cassidy, also a 1 minute 13.1 for Team Toms, 10th on the grid, and disappointment for him again, doesn't want to be qualifying that far down, while 9th place is Tomoki Nojiri for Team Mugen, now 1 minute 13.1. Now the 8 drivers who got through into Q3 show Suboi for Tsurumu Ing, a 1 minute 23.5, very unrepresentative time. He actually crashed in Q3 before setting his fast lap. Naoki Yamamoto for Team Dandelion, 7th on the grid, 1 minute 14.4. You can tell Q3 was slower. Hiroki Ishira for Ing, 1 minute 13.7, 6th on the grid, just behind Toshika Oyu, the rookie for Nakajima Racing, with a 1 minute 13.4. Tanasuki Makino, also for Nakajima Racing, also a 1 minute 13.4 for him. Now the rookie, 3rd on the grid, Sasha Fenestras, Kondo Racing, a 1 minute 13.1, and an extra point for him. 2nd on the grid, the rookie this weekend, Ritomo Miyata for Team Toms, a 1 minute 13.1, 2 points for him. Good job too. And pole position for the 2nd time in a row, the 4th time in his Super Formula career, Ryo Hirakawa for Team Impul, a 1 minute 12.7, 4 tenths ahead of the next fastest driver, and he has extended his championship lead to 10 points. As we see Sasahara actually in the pit lane. Now, we did not see this as they were pulling away. Sasahara will not be starting 13th on the grid. He'll be getting away from the pit lane. He will have to wait till all of the other cars have departed before he can actually get going and start his race. Not sure what happened there, Sam.
No, I didn't see that either. I just saw that he'd come in and he was in the pits where he shouldn't have been. Maybe didn't get the car ready in time. But Hirakawa, Miyata, Fenestras, Makino, Oyu, that's your top 5. Will they keep the same order? There could be a problem for a couple of the cars. The overtaking system, the red flag is waving. Now, what's happened here? Yeah, I have no idea why we've got a red flag. This is
unusual.
Yeah.
I don't particularly see any incident as to why there's nothing. I just saw a yellow flag waving.
Yeah, that was about to say somebody stop.
About halfway down the field, and
was that Sakaguchi? Sakaguchi in car 19.
Yeah, it's
got
somewhere.
yes. It is.
I think
It's
he stalled,
Sakaguchi.
yes. Sakaguchi has stalled. And that is further disappointment for Yuki Sakaguchi, qualifying further down the field. If he has stalled, that will mean he will have to drop to the rear of the grid. Actually, probably either drop to the rear of the grid or start from the pit lane. I'm not entirely sure which in this particular circumstance. I really should read my sporting regulations more often.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I don't have the sporting regulations just in front of me. Two empty slots on the grid as well.
There's a big. I think there's a gen. Do you know what? I think Sakaguchi's actually no Sakaguchi. I think he's too far back. I think he's missed his. I wonder if he's missed his grid slot completely.
Something else going on here, Leigh.
Okay, someone else has stopped. Someone else has stopped on the actual warm-up lap. And ahead of Sakaguchi, the gap ahead of Sakaguchi. Yes, it is. It's a crash. I think that is Sakaguchi. That's Sakaguchi, the rookie Sakaguchi. And I was wondering because there was a gap in front of Sakaguchi, which would have been Sasahara, who's in the pits. And this is Sena Sakaguchi, who was actually supposed to be sitting in for Kenta Yamashita. This would have been his first Super Formula start completely. He has crashed on the warm-up lap. I did not see that at all. I need glasses, probably, apart from the ones I'm already wearing. I did not see that in the slightest. So that is an eventful warm-up lap that, wow, that was actually, yeah, I'm lost for words, absolutely lost for words.
Well, let's recap. So we've got the Red Bull driver starting from the pit lane. Don't know what happened there. We saw the number 19 car stall. That's the other Kondo racing car, is it? No, that is Sakaguchi in the team. That's Team Impul.
I think that's a mistake, Sam. I don't think Sakaguchi actually stalled. I think they probably waved the flags because that was maybe the gap where Sakaguchi and Sasahara would have been.
Well, did he stop in the wrong position then? Because he had the driver, you know, Sakaguchi was waving his arms around in that Toyota-powered Team Impul car, and he was making it very clear, and the yellow flags were waving as if it was a stalled car. So I think he lost the engine, and you saw his overtaking system light start flashing the wrong colour. And so I think an issue occurred on that car. And then, of course, somehow, Sasahara has binned it out there. And we've no idea how he's actually managed that because we haven't seen a replay. And I didn't see it in the background of the shot either, actually.
I did not see it at all. So because that is quite interesting because you got incidents there for 3 cars who were all effectively one after the other on the grid. I did not actually see Sasahara on the warm-up lap. So either he's had a completely separate incident, which has caused him to start from the pit lane, or they've actually had an incident themselves on the warm-up lap. I'm actually quite astonished. I've not really seen anything like that in quite a long time.
I mean, it's a little interesting one in terms of the sporting regulations, because obviously the person who brings out the red flag, normally you have to, you get booted into the pit lane to restart. But Sakaguchi, I think, had a problem there as well. Now, has this bailed Sakaguchi out and lets him restart in the position he should be restarting in? Because as you can see, there's the Raffiné car being recovered. And yeah, what a bizarre opening. We'll see how they work this out.
It's been a while since I've seen anything quite like that, Sam. Quite a while since I've seen anything quite like that. I mean, I'm quite interested. Did he overcook it? Or maybe did he get a slight collision from behind? Absolutely no idea. But it's so incredibly unusual to ever see a driver lose it on the warm-up lap, effectively.
The last one I'm thinking of is
Degrassi,
and it was under Degrassi. Jenson Button were behind a safety car, I think, at Monza. But he's done the entire right front corner of that car. That right front wheel is not at the correct angle. Fortunately, they've got an old moped tyre to balance the car on to make up for that. Its overtaking system's still engaged, and marshals haven't switched the car off, which they probably should. So he's hit the wall relatively hard.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a light hit. That is not a light hit. To do that damage to the front wheel tire, rip the front parts of the front end off. That's actually quite a sizable. And that's what leads me to think maybe he slightly overcooked it, applied too much power, and it's actually maybe shot him in the opposite direction while he was steering rapidly to warm his tyres.
I think that's exactly it.
I have not seen anything like that in a very, very long time.
Well, I know our team are rapidly looking to find a camera that picked up the replay because they're a little bit confused about what's gone on, and so as much as we are. So we're looking at a long shot, a nice shot of the Japanese countryside, and a rather broken Dallara. I think that's going to be embarrassed, isn't he, when he walks back to the paddock? That is going to be. Well, it gives us a little bit of time. I think I'm just there's messages flying around between the sporting channels, but it gives a little bit of time to say thank you to Bot Chad, who has just joined the channel. You can join the race, the-race.com here on YouTube. It's well worth it. And thank you to all of our members for joining us and making it possible to bring you series like Super Formula, like the Indy series, esports series that we're going to have later on today from Portland, and like Super GT and British GT next weekend. I know there's something soggy going on a long racetrack in Germany at the moment, but stay here with us at Okayama because this is already unpredictable and we haven't had a single racing lap yet. I told you.
I think the only soggy thing was probably Sakaguchi's race undergarments after he slammed it into the wall. That's something for another time, I'm sure. So yeah, we'll have a slightly reconstituted version of the grid with and this the interesting bit about this is Sakaguchi actually, because if he has stalled his car, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, if that would qualify for him to go to the back of the field in this particular instance, because technically the red flag came out before the yellow flag. Because if we were looking down the grid, remember the red flag came out first because Sakaguchi had already crashed. And it was only afterwards the yellow flag came out. So if, and I emphasize this is a big if Sakaguchi has stalled it, I believe he may be able to get a free pass to actually restart his car in this instance.
So just to answer a couple of the questions that came in from Honolulu Boy, where did he go off? It was at Atwood Curve. Don't know which turn number it is.
Yeah, the long kind of right-hander that bleeds out into a bit of a straight, which actually makes that almost a bit strange because it's not exactly a sharp section of the track. It is a long kind of lingering corner, and I find it almost even weirder.
I think you're absolutely right. He's just lit up the rears and just piled it in, trying to get some rear temperature in, I think. Ninja Pete points out Roman Grosjean has crashed behind a safety car in Monaco. Yes, he has. And RJ O'Connell, hello RJ, Blinky XX in the chat says he wants to stress that Sakaguchi is a top driver in GT300, which we'll see next weekend here on this channel. He leads the Formula Regional Japan Championship, he does, and he's second in Super Formula Light, so he's going to have better days. You're absolutely right, RJ, but today isn't a great day. Also, No-Tail Pats, welcome to the channel, thanks for joining. It just gives me a little bit of a moment to point out some of the other bits and bobs that are coming up as we have this short delay. The girls got the board up, so it's not going to be much more delay.
3 minutes. Yeah, 3 minutes. 3 minute board time.
So in those 3 minutes, I can tell you that you have the-race.com, brilliant website, all of the latest news and happenings from the Russian Grand Prix at Sochi. And there'll be some brilliant reaction from there as well. I think they're covering the Nürburgring 24 hours and lots of other great stuff. Mark Hughes, I've been reading a lot over the weekend, is absolutely nailing it with the content this weekend, so do check that out. They've got in-depth coverage, of course, of Formula 1, MotoGP, Formula E, Indycar, and Racing Esports. Don't forget to check out at We Are The Race on Twitter and Insta thingy for all your motorsport news and reaction. Podcasts, there's lots of them. We talked about that. Which one are you going to be listening to, Leigh?
I think I actually got to catch up with some Mark Hughes stuff because I do find Mark Hughes to be not just a very good journalist, he's actually quite an interesting bloke as well. I have a technical question for you, Sam.
Go through it.
These cars hold 90 litres of fuel.
Yes.
And this race has been extended, so there's an extra 21 kilometres added to this race as opposed to what was run in Motegi a few weeks ago. Still no refueling stops. How close or not are these cars going to be on fuel come the end of 51 laps today?
if all the fuel tanks are full, brim full of lovely gasoline, none of them are going to be in any trouble at all. However, are they all full of gasoline? Probably not. Has anybody short-filled, hoping for a safety car, or hoping to do a bit of fuel saving? Maybe. Kudai Tsukakoshi, his team, Drago Corse, could they be rolling the dice to get that Honda-powered car up the grid? Not sure. So we will see if anybody gets tight on fuel. I don't think it is going to be a problem. We'll find out in about 1 minute, according to this young lady.
It's not sure if it's quite windy or she's just waving that sign with incredible vigour.
It's the vigour of the sign. It's that lovely yellow bird. Seems to be, there's people running on a starting grid. It always makes me think there's something afoot. Is it Hirakawa? There he is, with the red Bull branding on his helmet.
Very, very calm, Sam. Very, very, very calm Hirakawa. As I said earlier on, he had such a good run at Motegi last time out. Really actually showed the kind of confidence and potential that we haven't probably seen in quite a long time. He won his first Super Formula race last time out, last season, also in Motegi. So if he makes it 3 in a row, that is the kind of confidence a driver can really, really take with him and actually turn into consistent race results. Confidence is a big, big, big thing in motorsport, like all sports, really.
Not quite sure if we're going to be racing for 50 or 51 laps as the cars get going on their second formation lap. Let's see if they can all make it back to the starting grid this time. Find out. Let's see if we get it all up. We'll see if they reshuffle the grid as well. I don't think they did, so people will be starting in the positions they should be starting on, despite the absence of a number of cars. Let's see if that Red Bull car also makes it onto the starting grid this time. I've only got a Japanese cassette for these regulations in front of me, and I'm moving it in the wrong direction.
That is a very, very good point. That is a very, very good point. As we see, going around. That is Williams Corner, or near Williams Corner, are they? Or just, sorry, they're just past it, aren't they?
They're in Atwood.
That's the top of the screen. There is where Sakaguchi lost it. That's the entry into the long back straight, which leads them into Hairpin Corner, because it's a hairpin.
They couldn't be bothered to name the corners after that, and then Mike Knight Corner, brilliantly named, and last corner, which doesn't manage it really. No, the Red Bull car is still starting in the pit lane. So that's going to be a frustration for them. So we are just going to see the starts as planned. Sasahara, I did finger in the air to start the engine. That's how you start a Formula 1 car engine as well. I
did have a quick look through the notes online, any recent notes online just a moment ago. I couldn't see anything to say why Sasahara was starting from the pit lane. So I am actually at a loss. I don't know if that is an issue he had or if it was a penalty or what. There was nothing came up when I searched a few moments ago. So yeah, I'm actually in the dark for that one as they come through the last couple of corners to once again line up on the grid. My gut feeling, Sam, is this is going to be 50 laps because they did complete a formation lap last time around.
Well, in most series, that would be the case. In Super Formula, we'll see. We'll see it in a minute. As soon as the race starts, it'll give us a lap counter. We haven't had it communicated with us, so we don't actually know how long this race is. It's 50 or 51 laps of action. Round Motegi, you are watching, again, round 2 of the 2020 Super Formula Championship here at Okayama Circuit on the-race.com. Don't forget to hit like, don't forget to hit subscribe, and don't forget to get this race going.
Keep an eye out, I think, for Sasha Fenestraz there, the red and white car, third on the grid. He didn't have the best of starts last time out, from second on the grid at Motegi. Put that down maybe to being his first round, but he is on the clean side of the track this time round, so it may actually be worth keeping an eye out to possibly jump Miyata coming down into turn 1. We shall see in a moment as the cars have lined up and the man at the back of the field with the green flag is gingerly walking. Oh,
he's super impressed. Well, lights are ready to go, and they go out, and we get underway here at Okayama, and it's a really good start by Hirakawa. Miyata, terrible start, gets absolutely swamped, goes down the order down to about 4th or 5th.
Oh, it's
out goes. I didn't see who that was.
That is Fenestraz
off the field. He's off the field there, Leigh.
Someone else has gone off as well, but rejoined. I think Fenestras is the only driver who. Oh no, there is another driver. It's one of the. It's one of the Nakajima cars. I believe that maybe Tadasuke Makino, who actually got a decent start, was on the inside, but has got squeezed really going into turn one as Hirakawa leads ahead on a safety car called safety car, and that's actually not quite a surprise because Makino is stuck very much stalled in the middle of the track. Safety car, so Hirakawa leads. Well, that was.
We'll get this race going at some point.
That's a horrible start for Kondo Racing because obviously they've lost Sakaguchi on the original warm-up lap. Now they've lost Sasha Fenestras in the first corner. A dreadful, dreadful start.
Well, that's why you saw Machi Kondo with his head in his hands at that point. He's just wiped out. Well, not really, you know, one car gone before lap one and one car gone in turn one. I think there are about 4 or 5 cars, well, at least 4 cars involved in that, maybe 5 or 6 cars involved in the middle of that. I think we've got some spinners who got away without any damage. We'll see a replay of it fairly soon, but we're going to see some big losers.
There was definitely one car in there that did a full 360, and I wasn't sure if that was Makino who then stalled or if it was someone who actually got away, but Fenestras was on the outside, it looked like, maybe even part of a 3-car sandwich. Sho Tsuboi, second place. Great start for him. Considering he was 8th on the grid after crashing in Q3 earlier on.
Well, looking at this, I think Oyu, Fenestras, Makino were all tangled up in that.
Cassidy 4th, Sam. Cassidy 4th from 10th on the grid.
He's done well out of this. All the cars in front of him wrecked, and he's gone up to 4th. So he's going to be thanking his teammate who really triggered that by having such a terrible start. I'm not quite sure how.
Makino is out of the car, Sam. It seemed like a while, but Tadasuke Makino has just jumped out of the car. So that's obviously very good news.
I'm keen to see what sort of triggered that beyond the Vantolin Team Tom's driver, Miata, making just a terrible start. Perhaps pressure got to him with too many, you know, building up, not having a proper race start, and then finally getting going and fluffed the start, and the cars were everywhere. As soon as they got to turn 1 full wide, they were all spinning around, and that's really what caused that mess.
Well, Makino looked very much to be on the inside. Fenestras got a sluggish kind of getaway as well, although he still was kind of second place coming into turn 1, but level very much with Makino. I think Oyu was in there as well, but didn't get caught up necessarily in the crash that was happening around him. Fenestras looking very, very annoyed.
He is. He was remonstrating with somebody there. Now, yeah, there you go. Now, let's see this again. What happened? Miata makes a terrible start, drops back, and moves to the right.
Makino there. Makino's on the inside, and that's Oyu. Hits his teammate, I think, and Oyu also hit into the back of Fenestras there. I think Oyu is the 3rd car on the right-hand side of the grid. He's going to swing across now. So there's Oyu in the back, and he outbrakes himself. That is Miata just inside there. He hits Fenestras. I think it was Fenestras actually probably locked wheels with Makino. Makino spins all the way around, and did he get hit? No, he didn't. I don't think he got hit when he was spinning around, but he definitely was hit by Fenestras as they were spinning basically off going into turn 1. But that all came very much from Toshiki Oyu having maybe a little bit too much ambition going into the first corner there. Outbraked himself, clattered Fenestras, who hit Makino, and some very, very, very disappointed drivers. I don't think they've no reason to actually be annoyed with each other. I don't think.
I think
they may have a little bit of a word with Oyu afterwards.
Fenestras is very, very unhappy, giving a sarcastic round of applause there to the Honda powered driver. I think he's accusing the wrong person there, actually.
That is the kind of thing a driver will get back to the pit lane, look at the video. As we see, that is Oyu coming in. So Oyu did pick up some damage.
Yeah, he definitely did. He lost a huge amount of time as well, so I think that might be the end of the race for him. This is the guy that does the blame.
Is this a puncture, maybe? Because he would have...
it's a lack of wing.
Wing.
Yeah, I think Oyu was actually the chap who... well, Miata's poor start and going aggressive, moving to the right was really what triggered it. But Oyu's Miata saw Oyu coming, got out of it, and then Oyu just collected everybody.
Miata dropped a lot of positions there in the end as well. A bit of unassuredness. He's 7th place. There's a little bit of assuredness as we see. It's a long stop, and I was wondering if they were going to actually change that left front. I thought they would have to, because Oyu locked up quite significantly going into that first corner. As we see, Hirakawa got away scot-free. Absolutely nothing in his mirrors. He was fresh and clean away, really.
Oh, still stalking around, looking rather grumpy there. The TCS Nakajima driver, Makino, really not happy about what's gone on here. He might be trying to be trying to avoid Sasha Benestras.
Meanwhile, Hirakawa, as we mentioned, leads the race. Sho Suboi in the very, very colourful Ing car in 2nd place. It is Hiroki Ishira, 3rd place. He started 6th in the other Ing car, 3rd place. Nick Cassidy up from 10th on the grid, took 4th, is taking 4th there. That's 4 Toyotas in top 4, by the way. That's worked out very well for them. 5th place is Naoki Yamamoto. Decent job to avoid the wreckage and chaos that was going around him. Sekiguchi, meanwhile. Sekiguchi, started 15th. Now, something I was thinking, I may have mentioned earlier on, Sekiguchi had a huge gap in front of him because there was 2 empty slots on the grid. And he's made hay while the sun was shining, because he's gone from 15th to 6th in that melee, helped again by Fenestras and Makino, been taken out of the action. Miata 7th place, bad start, dropped down a few positions. It's your first race, it happens. Tomoki Nojiri is 8th. He's up 1 from 9th on the grid, while Naoki Yamamoto, that's completely wrong driver. I'm thinking of Yuichi Nakayama is 9th after he started 12th, and Oshima is 10th place, rounding out the final points position. As we see it, Fenestras, shoulder stroke. What else can he say, Sam?
Nothing we could. Yeah, I mean, for a driver who's really exploded onto the Japanese scene this year, this is the first big setback he's had. But it happens in racing. I mean, he's going to get over it. He'll watch the replay, realise he's just a passenger. But looking at Ritomo Miata, the man who triggered this accident in the Vantolin Team Tom's car, super quick, super impressive. Not the best start in the world. The Toyota power driver gets another go at it, starts from 7th position. Got to be a little bit of a chance for him. He's one to watch. He's out of position, he's got the pace, and Fenestras is still complaining about what went on. And now it's being told that it wasn't him, it was Oyu. And that's the conversation that's being had on the pit wall here as well.
I guess Fenestras has had a bit of a discussion with Makino, who I'm sure probably himself didn't really know what was going on behind him, as the safety car is still out. And now Fenestras is getting an explanation from the team boss, who has seen the footage, explaining what actually happened. As we see Makino getting back into the pits now. And you got to feel slightly for Makino. Didn't have the best of rounds last time out in Motegi. He's taken 2 points. He finished ninth in that race. He is a race winner in Formula 2 as well, so he is a talented young man. But I think he was probably expecting a little bit more from this race, considering he was starting 4th in the grid. And as we see, Fenestras has been lifted away. The reason this safety car period, by the way, is probably a little bit longer than normal is you have 2 cars who are off pretty much in the same position and only 1 tow truck. So they got to go pick up. They had to get rid of Makino's car first, because that was actually on the track, and then kind of drop it off, go back and pick up Fenestras' car as well.
Well, Leigh, we've had basically about 150, 200 meters of motor racing. 3 cars are out of the race, a huge amount of change of positions. The highlights package is going to be pretty easy for the guys. So far, anyway. 4 laps in to round 2, the 2020 Super Formula Championship here on the-race.com at Okayama. And as I just said, we've just had a few hundred meters of motor racing. We've had a red flag. We have a safety car. We've lost 3 cars from the field, including Sasha Fenestraz. We've got arguments between 2 Honda-powered TCS Nakajima drivers, and I think they're quite heated argument. Nick Cassidy is up to 4 from a really disappointing start. His arch rival, Leigh Yamamoto, just behind him. That's always good to see. Rookie Ritomo Miyata has gone from 2nd to 7th. You're not doing a lap chart, are you, Leigh?
No, I don't really. I don't when I'm commentating. One thing I actually can't keeping track of, Sam, is a lot of the other content that's coming on the race YouTube channel. Because of course, as I mentioned earlier on, we have lots of content from so many of the writers who are attending the Formula 1 Grand Prix at Sochi this weekend. As I mentioned earlier on, live esports racing tonight. It's the 2nd round of the Indy Pro Championship from, virtually from Portland International Raceway. Next weekend, some more great GT racing with British GT rounds 7 and 8 from Snetterton. And actually, you know what? I haven't been to Snetterton in quite a while. Actually, bizarrely enough, I miss it. And it's also next weekend Super GT in Fuji Speedway, which I believe is going to be you on comms with Rob Barth again.
Yes, I think it is. I didn't know who I was commentating with, actually. I'll be doing it.
Well, I assume it's Rob Barth.
Yeah, well, I guess it's you or Rob Barth, isn't it? So it's one of you two. If not you, it must be Rob Barth. Otherwise, I'm going to have a long race on my own. It will be, we're told. I'm just having a look at the comments on the chat. Don't forget to let us know where you're watching from around the world. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. It means a lot to us. So if you're watching, do hit like. Unless you don't like it, then probably stop watching. But you should be watching. Again, you should be liking because it's great. Hit subscribe because we've got loads more content like this coming up later in the year. We hope to bring you some, or maybe into next year now, we hope to bring you some really good detailed videos of some of these cars, some of the drivers, a lot more racing action as well. So don't forget to, don't miss out on all of that. So hit subscribe. And it's the 2nd Super GT World, RJ O'Connell has pointed out, it's the 2nd DNS in as many sport starts for Sena Sakaguchi, which isn't great for him.
Got music there as well, Sam.
Did you?
Yeah. How bizarre. Yeah, well, maybe I'm like more.
Yeah, maybe. I found some nice pictures of some photographs from a photographer of that first start. And as the clean-up is still continuing, the safety car lights are on, there's a really, really good series of photos that I'm just retweeting at the moment. And you can see what went on. And it really was basically a TCS Nakajima private accident, quite frankly. Oyo clattered his teammate, took out Fenestraz as well, and then he's still in the race, and the 2 drivers he's removed from the race are sitting on the pit wall waiting for him to return. I wouldn't rush back if I were.
No. Meanwhile, if you're enjoying this race so far, this is only the 2nd round of the Super Formula Championship of 2020. We're back in 3 weeks' time for more Super Formula from Sportsland Sugo, easily one of the fastest racing tracks, road circuits that I've ever seen. Then in November, 15th of November, round 4 from Autopolis. And then in December, it gets incredibly cramped. Rounds 5 and 6, both from Suzuka. Over one weekend, that's a double header at Suzuka from over December 5th and December 6th. That's rounds 5 and 6. And then the season finally finishes on December 20th, Sam, with Fuji Speedway. A very, very, very late end to the year. And what could actually prove to be incredibly cold conditions, which it could really play into the championship battles. And speaking of the championship, Sam, this is not the end of the world for Sasha Fenestraz or Tadasuke Makino by any stretch of the imagination, because in this season, which is really quite unique, yes, there's 7 rounds. Only 5 of them are actually counting towards the standings. So your 5 best results will do you in the championship for Super Formula this year. And that is effectively to take into account several drivers who are not going to be able to take part in every round, as we've seen, especially this weekend. See the clock counting down. We're going to be just under 1 hour left in this race, such as the number of incidents we've had at the start. So yeah, if you're a driver who actually misses a round or 2, it's not the end of the world, because you can still build up a championship challenge over the remaining 5 rounds. But at the same time, you don't necessarily want to give away any races by having incidents or having car failures or anything like that.
Indeed, as we get a nice view of the Lexus safety car here at Okayama. Yellow. I don't know why they chose yellow for it.
Yeah, yellow. I can only describe it as yellow. It looks like a taxi.
Have you ever played the yellow car game? Look that one up.
No, we don't really do that.
And so I asked you all to tell us where you're from. Make sure you still do, because there's lots of you from all over the world. We'll have a moment. But I'd like to say a big hello to our friends in Canada who are joining us on Rev TV. Thanks for watching Super Formula. It's great to have you on board, and it's great to see. Well, as I say, we've only had about 200 meters of action, but it's been great. 7 laps in. This is interesting though, Leigh. We're on the countdown clock has appeared on the screen, which means the race organisers think it's marginal that this race is going to go to the 50-lap distance. A second important thing that's at the top of the screen. Remember those rules we said just at the top of the show?
Mm-hmm.
The pit window opens on lap 8.
10.
Lap 10. Oh, there you go. 3 laps to go. If this safety car comes out, it stays out much longer, but I don't think it's going to, because look at the lights on the top. We're ready to go back racing at Okayama. Fed up with Sam Collins back.
That's not actually a bad shout though, Sam, because if the field is going to be still that close together come lap 10, are you going to be the driver who's going to want to bank pitting, get fresh tyres, and then spend a lot of time in free air in order to actually make up positions on the field when everyone else pits? Really depends on at what point the rest of the field feel it's optimal to actually go in for a stop. Because these soft tyres do actually have a good lease of life, Sam. They don't really go off terribly quickly.
That's right. Of the 16 cars in the field, if I was in the rear 8 of them after the end of the first lap, if we get that far, I would be doing exactly that, coming in for an early stop and then going. But we're racing again. The green flag is flying. We have action at Okayama.
And it's Hirakawa leading from Sho Sugo, Hiroki Ishira coming across the line, Nick Cassidy in 4th place, Naoki Yamamoto 5th, Sekiguchi in 6th place, the rookie Miyata 7th. Good job for him. Hirakawa weaving across the line, still generating heat into his tyres as the race restarted, but no concerns from the rear, as we see Ishira is looking to maybe challenge Sho Sugo, his teammate, for 2nd position, but not really close enough at all as they come onto the long back straight. Ishira really working on the overtaking system at the moment behind his teammate.
And he's making the move, trying to go up the outside. Didn't work. His teammate shut the door. Clearly teammates, but that doesn't mean it's a cessation of hostilities. They're going to be battling all the way around to try and get position. I love this Indycar Motorsport look. It kind of gives you a look of a old low-nose 1990s Formula 1 car. It seems fitting as we go around what used to be called Tanaka International AIDA circuit.
As we come towards the rear end part of the field, several kind of medium speed corners which can sometimes spread the field out a little, actually a little bit reminiscent of the old last few corners of Barcelona, Circuit of Catalonia, Barcelona, from before they put the chicane in. But you can see Nick Cassidy now is putting pressure on Ishira for 3rd place. And he fell back in the latter part of that lap as Sho Sugo got up to speed as they come through first few turns now. Lap 9, only 55 minutes left in this race. Hirakawa leads by just under 1 second. Sho Sugo is in 2nd place. Ishira really under pressure now from Nick Cassidy as they come around that long right-hander. Cassidy gets on the overtaking system. He's going to go for third place here as Ishira defends and defends quite remarkably, but Cassidy's still going to go around the outside. Will Ishira back down? He will not. They almost collect wheels. Cassidy tries it to the inside. He's not going to get him there. Well, that was very, very close, but tough racing there between the reigning champion and Hiroki Ishira.
There was definite contact there, Leigh, that you could see the smoke off the side, but I'm not sure if they touched wheels or floor to wheel, but Cassidy may well not be happy with some of those moves by Ishira. That was extremely aggressive racing there from the Project Mu team Inging driver. That's Tsurumo who run that. They run the Zent car in Super GT. They run these very colourful Dallara Super Formula SF19s. But of course, now Nick Cassidy using that overtaking boost system has opened the door to Naoki Yamamoto to start closing up on the rear of him. But as we see the pit stop cycles, as we predicted, the pit stop cycle is about to start. Some of those teams ready to receive their drivers. As at the back of the field, we've seen Ucho Sasahara get in front of Oyu, because Oyu had to make that pit stop for repairs of his own inducing. But Sasahara now back in the action and not far off the back of Takaboshi, down towards the rear of the field.
I think yes, it must have been in when Oyu had to go into the pits that time. Of course, Sasahara started from the pit lane, so would have been pretty much trailing at the rear of the field while all the action was happening ahead. Hirakawa still leading from Sho Suboi as they feed out into the final few corners. That's Sho Suboi, Ishira third place, Cassidy fourth. And Cassidy, he's going to want to make his way up the field. He knows Hirakawa's on a bit of a run at the moment. He knows he needs to get ahead of the number 20 car if he wants to actually make hay in this championship. Hirakawa already has a 10-point lead.
Yamamoto in.
That's Yamamoto in, and that is Miyata in as well.
Well, that is one of the Vantolin Team Tom's cars coming in to, I think, cover off Naoki Yamamoto. He's a little bit the meat in a Team Tom sandwich, or he was until he came in. Lots of teams now diving for pit lane as predicted. So I think that's pretty much, there's actually some cars further up the field than I thought. So it looks like almost everybody who isn't in the top four is going to be coming to pit road in the next couple of laps.
And that's Oyu in the pits as well from the rear of the field to change tyres. He did actually change. Obviously, they're changing the left front again, because I'm assuming they just put like an old practice tyre on the left front that time when he had to get his wing changed. So that is Yamamoto and Miyata out as well. This will be interesting. That we need to keep an eye on Yamamoto now, because he is going to be driving in clean air for a short while. He may not get a huge advantage if the rest of the field does decide to come in. I'd be more interested if he stays out.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing. As we said, Naoki Yamamoto running in clean air, as you can see. He'll be pumping in the lap times as best he can on these new tyres to be trying to close the gap on drivers like Nick Cassidy. Well, I was going to say this man as well. Yeah.
That showed Suboi in, and from third place, from second place, Sho Suboi pitting from second place.
And that's actually a bit of a surprise.
Very interesting. That is very, very interesting. He's given up track position as Sakaguchi also pits. I believe Nirei Fukuzumi is also coming into the pit lane. He is there, actually. Sakaguchi back out.
Well, the only people who haven't stopped now, Ryo Hirakawa, Ishihara, Nick Cassidy of the front runners, those three Toyota engine runners, Tomoki Nojiri up to fourth in the Honda-powered car. That's really on the pit stops. So that top three, they need to be pumping in the lap times, because they're being chased. This is going to be a battle in the pits, but they're being chased by this man in the Docomo Team Dandelion car, Naoki Yamamoto, who is in that completely empty track, doing qualifying laps, trying to get those positions off them. It's a bit like racing on aggregate.
The interesting point now for Yamamoto, as he's going to be racing in clean air, setting very, very, very fast.
Leigh, sorry to jump in on you, but I was going to say Ryo Hirakawa is coming in. Yeah,
that is
the race leader,
yes.
So Ishihara leads this race now from Nick Cassidy. What will those two drivers do? Will they keep out on the tyres they've got, or come to the pits for new tyres as well? then where everybody's on the same tyre by that point. Seems to be everybody's making the same strategy call. So, by running those slow laps under the safety car, it's well on the right rear. But running those slow laps on the safety car might not be the best way to go as the Red Bull car comes in as well.
But that's actually an interesting point, because you could run on this slightly slower tyre in these particular laps. As we see, that is Sho Suboi. You could run on a slightly slower laps and change later on and actually go on the quicker, newer tyre while you actually have much less fuel. That is also a potential pinch point. It just depends how much time you're comfortable with losing on the slower tyre for this opening stint of the race. As Suboi really pushing, as Hirakawa still on slightly cold tyres. Almost a collection there, and Sho Suboi does get past Hirakawa to take what for the moment was not the lead of the race, but is the effective lead of the race. And I think that slow stop from Hirakawa has really cost him there, and took him a while to get back up to proper speed on the new soft Yokohama tyres. So.
That's absolutely right. Tyre warmers are banned in this championship like they are in Super GT. So it does take about a lap to get up to full temperature. That's the difference you're seeing between those two cars. And it was a little bit mugged by that Team England car.
He's shooting ahead, Sam. He is shooting ahead. Hirakawa did lose a little bit of time in the pit lane, but it wasn't such a significant loss. That's Yamamoto, by the way, just behind, I believe. But it didn't look like such a significant loss as to cost him that much time. He was quite a bit ahead of, he had about 1.5 to 2 seconds ahead of Sho Suboi at the time of the pit stops. By the way, that's actually Sakaguchi behind Hirakawa, not Yamamoto. They're both in white cars, but there you go. And as we see, this is Oyu making a move on Sakaguchi. Sakakoshi. That's not Sakakoshi, is it? It's the other replacement driver. Yes, yeah, Takaboshi, the other replacement driver this weekend. My apologies. Oyu making his way up the field after his slightly unfortunate start, shall we say?
Yes.
That's for 14th place. Oyu, of course, on fresh tyres. And this is
Nakayama, I think. Yes, it is, in the KCMG car.
Yes, it is. Nakayama pitting from 4th place. He was towards the lower end of the points. He was 9th, I believe, before the pit stop started. So decent run for him so far, as we should see Sho Suboi out ahead. Now, he is in his 2nd full season, Sam, of Super Formula. He was incredibly fast, incredibly talented young driver. He won the Japanese Formula 3 Championship in 2018. He won 17 races from 19 events in 2018. He only claimed 1 podium in Super Formula last season, finishing 11th in points in the end. And he'll be he actually retired last time out. He retired actually on the first lap in Motegi, so he'll be looking for a big result this weekend to kind of kickstart his season.
So this strategy, Leigh, of those who stopped early, one of the advantages, you get the fresh tyres on, you've got slightly clearer air, and you can get on and get racing and get some lap time going. I'm not sure it's really working, because they're not taking a huge amount of time out of the race leaders. Ishira and Cassidy are both running 1:15 7s and 9s, which is in fact slightly quicker than some of the guys who've already stopped. So Sho Suboi is running a 1:15.7, Hirakawa 1:16 3s, Naoki Yamamoto is in the 1:16s as well. Doesn't look like it's working out.
Well, I think the great test is you've got Sakaguchi, who's actually the fastest driver. He set the fastest lap in the race so far, but that's only 0.2 of a second quicker than the lap times that Ishira and Cassidy have been setting. So you're right, this may not actually work out at all. The key thing to look at is basically where these drivers will fit in. Now you see a gap between Ishira and Sho Suboi, 35 seconds, 32 seconds if you're in Cassidy. You're almost at the stage where you can actually pit and get out ahead of Sho Suboi. I think you've got to be looking at between, I think it's 27 to 32 seconds in the pit lane to safely navigate the pit lane, have your tyre stop, and then navigate the pit lane exit. But then you also have to take into account you're going to lose time when you're out lap because your tyres are going to be cold. So this is actually, as it stands right now, this is working out really quite well for Ishira and Cassidy.
Well, keep an eye on Oyo in the TCS Nakajima car. That's the red and white Honda-powered Dallara. You can see on your screens just ahead of rookie Miata in the 36 Vantolin Team Tom's Toyota-powered car. You can see that slow light flashing on the white and green Team Tom's Toyota car. That shows that he's used his overtaking system. He's pressed that button, and he isn't able to engage it at this point because he's used up all his allowance of it. But the guy behind him with the bright green light, not flashing at all, but you'll see it flashing very quickly in a moment, that's Oyu. He's got all of his overtaking boost available to him, so he's going to press that button at the right moment. He's going to come charging up on the back of that Toyota-powered car. Meanwhile, the Inging team cars, very brightly coloured. The way to tell these two cars apart, between Ishira and Sho Suboi, is that the girl on the front, the anime girl, the Itasha girl on the front nose cone of one of the cars is winking, and on the other car she's not.
Right.
And that's as much as I've managed to tell apart.
Wow, that was wasn't expecting that. As we see Sho Suboi. Oyu got a drive-through penalty, by the way, which I'm just going to assume is for that incident on the opening lap. But I mean, his race is pretty much done anyway. As we see, Sho Suboi and Hirakawa just behind Sakaguchi. Now, I think we're really almost dead cert at the point when at least Ishira can get out and definitely come out ahead of Sho Suboi. I believe Cassidy may need another couple of seconds, possibly 3 seconds leeway to take into account a slower outlap. But Ishira and Cassidy have almost certainly, they're very, very, very close to covering those drivers who've actually stopped already.
But Ishira, there's no way he's going to pit at the moment because he's quicker than Sho Suboi at the moment. Nick Cassidy, though, on the other hand, is slower. So he's losing time to Sho Suboi.
Yeah, it's a couple of tenths of a second at this point. As I said, you'd probably be looking for 27 or 30 seconds to actually make the pit stop, but then you've got to calculate how much you're going to lose on that outlap. And this would be interesting because Ishira, 1 minute 15.8 last time around. Sho Suboi, a 1 minute 15.9. I think it's very close. They're not getting the tyre wear they may have been expecting at this early stage. Would it be interesting to see if there's going to be a sudden drop-off later on, maybe the middle part of the race? We're already 19 laps into this race, Sam, so there's still a lot of action to go. As we see, that is Oshima up to 4th place. Oshima is an interesting proposition. He is in the rookie racing team. It's a single car entry. That's actually run out of the Tsurumo stable as well. The same team that run the Inging cars of Ashura and Sho Suboi. But it is a single car entry. It is not actually an Inging car as such. He has Kunimoto just behind him. Yuji Kunimoto had an awful qualifying session, started 18th on the grid, currently running 5th. Of course, he's not actually stopped yet. But yes, it's a decent job so far by Oshima, who's running 10th in the early running. Hoping to get more points. He got 10th last time round at Motegi to actually get off the bottom of the score charts. But will Kunimoto be able to find a way past as we have a pit stop? That is Nojiri pitting from 3rd place, Sam. This will be interesting. He's 12 seconds behind the race leader, so this may drop him in and around Fukuzumi Miyate, maybe.
Yeah, I'm trying to sort out where he's going to come. Oshima also heading for the pits. With racing, you'll see him there. He is. No one's jumping over the noses, so they seem to have, without the refueling going on, they seem to have revised their pit methodology for most of these teams.
Quite disappointing, actually. I quite like the acrobatics. A few questions coming in as to why the race has come down to the clock. There is a 90-minute limit for Super Formula races. In the same way Formula 1 races have a 2-hour limit, it's a 90-minute limit. So if I believe correctly, from that initial very first start where Sakaguchi went off by himself on the warm-up lap, that basically started the clock so that the race would not continue on forever and ever and ever and ever. So we're 50 minutes into that, basically. We may I don't think we're going to get to 50 laps, but I think it's going to be pretty close.
I was going to say, are you sure? Because I was just trying to work out in my head and I can't. As we see a good battle on track now between, that's one of the Docomo Team Dandelion cars and the returning Mugen Honda. And the Honda trying to get going out of the, his tyres working, but it's not. He's going to get done around the outside quite clearly. And the Vantolin Team Tom's car coming up as well to take advantage. So it's Honda on Honda at that point. And then the Team Tom's Toyota powered car is going to sneak through, I think, as well. If he doesn't, I'd be very surprised. Yes, it does.
That is Fukuzumi. Just getting past. That is... Sorry, that was Nigeria. Yes, that was Nigeria. That is, it has just got past.
Miata and Fukuzumi. Yeah.
Miata and Fukuzumi just got past Nigeria there. Yes, because it is pretty much bang on 50 minutes since the original start, which kind of adds up. So we've got 40 minutes basically left for the rest of the 29 laps to run.
Which is,
actually, it might be almost bang on 50 laps, I think.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was sort of looking at. I was like, it looks about the right amount of time. Our producer is confirming that he thinks it will be close as well. Well, something that isn't close to us, at least, is all of you. We've got people watching from South Carolina, from Brazil, from Sweden, Arizona, USA, New Zealand, of course. That's the Nick Cassidy fan club. As we're watching this battle between a Red Bull liveried car getting much closer to another car. I'll keep an eye on that. As
bit of a wobble there from Mashima as he came around the left-hander. Hasn't let Sasahara through yet as we look to the front of the field. Well, not the front of the field as such. That is Sho Subo in fourth place. He is the highest pitted driver at this point. But the gap is 36.5 seconds, Sam. As it stands at the moment, Ishira would just probably have enough to make his pit stop and actually get ahead. The other aspect being, if you're a driver now and you pit, you are going to have at least 10 to 12 laps fresher tyres than those who've already stopped. So you may still get an advantage in the second half of the race.
Well, Ishira isn't going to pit right now because he's gapping his teammates still, so he's pulling out that gap. He's taking advantage of that clean air at the front of the field, driving away from everybody bar Nick Cassidy in the second position. There you can see that gap getting bigger, going out to 36.6. A few laps ago it was only 35.6, so he's just eking it out ever so slowly. Nick Cassidy is also being gapped slightly. He's back in 6.7 seconds down on the race leader, but running roughly the same lap times. They're both in the 1:16.1s. Nobody else in the field, though, really that quick. So the front three are pulling away from the cars who have pitted, which means they are the top three in reality. Meanwhile, people watching that from all over. We've got Moscow, Brazil, Newcastle, Australia, Melbourne, Australia, Seattle, Washington, more of Australia, Pinner Valley and West Virginia, somebody at home, Melbourne, Mississippi, Hong Kong, Greece, India, Chile, Morocco, Australia, South Africa, Madagascar, the Netherlands, Toronto, Canada, Florida, USA, Korea, Netherlands, more of the Netherlands, Devon, England, that's probably Rob Bath, Finland, France, Vermont, USA, great accents there, the Philippines, Wakanda, I don't believe you, Austria, Cape Town, Seattle, Washington, Rosario, Argentina, Guadalajara, Mexico, Sergio Perez must be, and my house, no, you're not here, Spain, Conception, Chile, Palm Springs, London, Costa Rica, Greslik, Indonesia, the High Sierras, and Zurich, Switzerland, Seefeld to be precise.
One thing to keep an eye out as well is not just the gap between Ishira and his teammate Sho Subo in fourth place, but also the gap between Cassidy in second and Hirakawa in fifth place, which stands at around 32 to 33 seconds at the moment. That's going to be very, very, very tight for Cassidy should he make a pit stop in around here. The lost gap for a pit stop at Okayama is between 27 and 30 seconds, depending on how good or poor your pit crew are, but you're going to lose because there's no tire warmers in Super Formula. You will lose about 3 to 4 seconds on your outlap, so you can actually take that into your calculation as well. So Cassidy they're going to be thinking that it's 32 seconds between Cassidy and Hirakawa in fifth. Hirakawa is important because he is the championship leader at the moment. He's got a sizable championship lead. Cassidy really wants to make an absolutely huge dent in that this weekend, so he'll be aiming to get to time it so he can get out ahead ahead of Hirakawa, and it's going to be touch and go at this point for him to get out just ahead of Hirakawa, but then also stay ahead when he's out on cold tyres.
Cassidy picking up the pace ever so slightly, taking a couple of tenths of seconds last time by out of Ishira. That's important, but both of them losing time to Yuji Kunimoto in third position. However, he is a long, long way behind them, as you can see on the...
Kunimoto very much in clean air at the moment, though, and really he's made his tyres last quite a while. This actually could work out reasonably well for Kunimoto. If he would actually pit now, I think he would come out probably in 7th place, just ahead of, a few seconds ahead of Fukuzumi. So considering he started 18th on the grid and was running close to the bottom end of the points earlier on, that'd actually be quite a nice little earner for Kunimoto. So he's putting in some quick laps now, which makes me wonder if his pit stop may not necessarily be that far away. Last time round, the 1:15.5 was his fastest lap of the race. So I think we could be seeing Kunimoto pitting soon. We'll see. Meanwhile, out front, it is Hiroki Ishira. He's a two-time Super Formula champion, Sam. He is a champion in 2015 and 2017. So he knows how to win in this championship. He really knows how to push that boat out and ahead of the reigning champion, Nick Cassidy.
But he's going to have to start pushing that boat down the slipway pretty quickly, because he's starting to lose time to Nick Cassidy. Cassidy's taken half a second out of him in the last couple of laps.
He's starting to lose time in general because Ishira has slipped into the mid 1:16s, and I just wonder maybe if his tyres, if he's pushed so much harder about 10 laps ago, maybe the edge has just been lost on his Yokohama Advan tyres. Could be interesting, and that could also point to the necessity for him to pit in the next few laps. The gap.
Cassidy's to be coming soon, Lee. Look at the right front tyre of that Vantolin Team Tom's car. You can just see a little bit of discoloration there beginning to come through. That's sure sign that the tyres are beginning to wear out. But his lap times seem okay at the moment. He'll be able to see that from the cockpit, and he'll know his tyres are coming to the end of their life. Not surprising when he's 6 laps on the board. But with this timed race, we're about halfway through the race, probably slightly past, in fact, we are slightly past halfway. Exactly how far past halfway? Well, we're not quite sure.
That's the signal, Sam. That's the signal, Sam.
That's right, yeah, but Cassidy was reducing that gap now down to 5.7 seconds. The battle for the lead, even after the pit stops, is far from over.
And what's interesting about this situation, Sam, is those drivers who've pitted already, the Shosu boys, the Hirakawa, the Sakaguchis, they're not actually really going that much particularly faster than Ishira Cassidy at the moment. In fact, they're almost completely on par. Cassidy was 0.3 of a second faster than Suboi last time around. He is himself also beginning to build a small bit of a gap. So I think the question now becomes, if he's got a 32-second lead over the drivers he needs to be ahead of, he will then have the advantage of almost 20-lap fresher tyres as he comes out of the pits. You can take maybe a little bit of a loss on the outlap if you know you're going to be quicker over the 20 following laps. But
it's going to concertina the whole front of the field up, and that would be wonderful.
But the difference between those cars on older tyres...
He didn't pit.
He did not pit, and his right front is a little bit slightly damaged as well. You can see the ring of wear.
That's a big tyre blister forming on the right front tyre. Cassidy's got one too, but his tyre is on the way out. His lap times, though...
They're still steady. They're still steady. They're still the 1:16.4.
Yeah, but that 16.4 is we were seeing, 4 times a second quicker. There you can see on your screen the 16.1, 15.5, 16.1, 16.1, then 16.4. That's the tyre dropping off the cliff there. Cassidy's now doing 16.4s too. He's got that right front blister. Kunimoto doing 16 deads. He'll get that right front blister pretty soon as well. you're going to see Ishira and Cassidy head to the pits imminently, but they're going to have those fresh tyres over the rest of the field.
And of course, a lighter car as well, Sam, and the wear, the technical wear over a new tyre with a lighter fuel load is actually going to be less, so they may be able to eke more out. As I said before, the difference between the worn tyres we've seen so far and the difference between and the new tyres is not actually been that significant. They'll get a few laps, and he's gone past the pit lane again, Sam. He's eking another lap out of this. I wonder, they're looking at the lap times in the 16.4s and 16.5s, and it makes me wonder if they're thinking, well, the drop-off yet is not so significant that they actually need to worry. They're not losing seconds yet or anything like that, but they're losing maybe 1/10 of a second here and there. And that actually may be allowing them to stretch out their tyre strategy so much more that they can keep pushing that pit stop later and later and later and later, and then only do a very, very short later stint. Same with Cassidy. That gap, by the way, between Ishira and Cassidy is just over 5 seconds, so he's closed in. The gap from Cassidy to Sho Suboi and Hirakawa is still around 32, 33 seconds. So, Cassidy is going to emerge from the pits probably just ahead of them, but maybe lose the position on cold tyres. We shall see. They've not pitted yet.
That's what we're looking at. There's a number of battles going on here, and Cassidy's one of the most interesting ones. The Kiwi driver is in second position at the moment in the Vantolin Team Tom's Toyota-powered car. He is going slightly quicker, in fact significantly quicker now, than the race leader, and he's closing up the gap. It's now 5 seconds dead to Hiroki Ishira, who's gone past the pits yet again. There's Cassidy behind him. You can see him beginning to close up. He's using the overtaking boost system to make that lap time. That's why you can see his light flashing. So he's using up his overtaking boost system to make up for the degradation of his tyres. That's quite clever, and it is allowed. But what we're going to see is when they both rejoin the track on fresh tyres, Cassidy may have a slight advantage over Ishira in terms of getting back out on track. However, Ishira is going to have a lot more overtaking boost, and the cars behind him, Sho Suboi, Hirakawa and Sakaguchi, will all be primed to pound. But right now, it's Toyota. It's all Toyota top six.
Sam, the other interesting point at the moment is if you look just ahead of Ishira, you don't really see it on shot there, but you will see not far ahead of him, Toshoki Oyu, Ukyo Sasahara, Kazuyo Oshima, not too far in the distance. So I think they're about 5 seconds or so up the road. So they're also not too far from actually creating a disturbed air, shall we say, for the Tsurumu Ing race leader, who has pitted. He has gone into the pits. Ishira goes into the pit, Sam. This will tell us everything about the strategy for the rest of this race.
Yeah, but where's Cassidy? I didn't see the team.
Cassidy's gone around. Cassidy's gone around, and Cassidy has increased his pace as well to the 1 minute 16.1. But let's look at the pit stop as they go for new tyres for Hiroki Ishira.
The front tyre there is completely trashed on that Dallara, but he's got these new tyres. We're going to see some fast laps now, but where's he going to rejoin?
There's a sluggish away, Sam, I think, on the left rear.
Look at that, Leigh, clear track. That is going to be a welcome sight in the mirrors, but not so welcome. There's his teammate. He's on cold tyres. He's going to get mugged.
I think this is what he's going to maybe play with. He's going to lose a lot of time, but he will have fresh tyres. Sho Suboi is already going to be on 20-lap-old tyres, so that will give something of an advantage. Ishira has got to work really, really, really hard now to keep ahead of Sho Suboi, and actually maybe losing a little bit more time than initially considered as they go through the long right-hander. Is Sho Suboi going to go through on the outside here? I think he just might, but Ishira is using the overtake system to defend position, but Sho Suboi has it. They really hit that bump in the middle of the track there. Now let's see, this will be interesting to see if Ishira can actually activate his tyres quickly and how he can bring it back to Sho Suboi. As I said, he's been on 20-lap-old tyres. Cassidy, meanwhile, is still out there and is actually beginning to push, I think, against Sam.
I think he absolutely is. Just in case you're wondering why one of the roll hoop lights there went red as they both deployed the overtaking system. As the overtaking system runs out of charge, the lights turn red, then they go out altogether. And if the lights are out altogether, they haven't got much left. And if they're red, they're running out. And that allows the driver who's in the lead of the car can look back in his mirrors and see, oh, look, he's got red on his roll hoop. He hasn't got much chance. There's that red roll hoop flashing slowly. He can't use OTS. But look at that. They're all watching each other. The Team Indycar, though, now going to be pounced on by chasing pack.
This could still work out reasonably well for Cassidy because Hirakawa is now faced with a bit of a blockage just ahead. He's got Ishira just ahead of him, who is on fresh tyres. Hirakawa on slightly aging tyres, as it were. So if Ishira is a little bit of a roadblock over the next couple of laps, it could actually extend the gap between Cassidy and Hirakawa. Sho Suboi, meanwhile, is going to absolutely push hard in these laps to make sure that he can get ahead of Cassidy when Cassidy does eventually pit.
Well, Cassidy's not losing too much time to anybody else on the field. His first sector time is pretty competitive compared to pretty much everybody else apart from Tomoki Nojiri, who's the only other driver putting in fast laps, and he's a long way back in 10th position. So Cassidy's looking okay with his strategy so far. He is going to have to stop, but he's not losing time to all of these guys battling. It's not really a battle for 4th position. He's got Cassidy and Kunimoto who still need to stop. Cassidy will be in the middle of this lot when he comes back out of the pit lane, and Kunimoto not so much, he'll be further back. But this is really the battle for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and possibly the lead as well.
Hirakawa, meanwhile, is just starting to drop into the 17, Sam. That makes me wonder if possibly he has worked his tyres a little bit too much while chasing Sho Suboi for those few laps. It is only a couple of laps, incidents, shall we say. But that's definitely interesting. Cassidy, meanwhile, has pretty much spent most of the race in clean air, given that his gap to Ishira for all those laps was in the region of 5 to 6 seconds.
Now there is Cassidy. He's running out there, staying out for another lap. There you can see the gap. It's getting slightly bigger to Sho Suboi, the first of the cars that has pitted. Cassidy is looking, well, he's not looking strong to take the lead back. I think as the way it looks, he's going to come back out of the pits right in the middle of that big battle we were seeing on track, which will be lovely.
I think the game for Cassidy here, if you can't win, is to get ahead of the championship leader Hirakawa. And that is going to be very, very, very tight, as we see Ishira has caught back up with Sho Suboi. Now Ishira's tyres have actually come back into life, or sorry, his tyres have come to life. He's run right up to the rear of Sho Suboi, and you can really see the difference now. He's going to have maybe a 5 to 6 lap grace period where those tyres are fresh, and he's going to need to use them now to actually get ahead of his teammate.
It's going to be a lot more than 5 or 6 lap grace period. Look at the blister on the right front tyre with that Team Indycar, the leading car, Sho Suboi. He's got a massive blister on that right front tyre. Round the outside, tries Ishira, doesn't make it go. Can he get the undercut back round? Tries to go around the outside of the left-hander. That doesn't work either. He's going to try again at the next corner as well. But Suboi is going to be defending for the rest of the race because those tyres are shot.
This is going to cost Ishira hugely. Sho Suboi defending in a massive way, and it's costing Ishira time. It's costing Sho Suboi plenty of time as well. We'll see what their laps are as they come across the start-finish straight in just a moment's time. But they're having to move offline in such a significant way that it is only costing them quite a second. They actually, both of them almost lost a second to Cassidy that time around.
Cassidy's absolutely flying at the moment. It's his fastest sector of all in the first sector on the lap he's on at the moment. So he's really pushing. Yuji Kunimoto is pushing quite hard. He's driving himself back up the order. He's not going to be in the deep battle for the lead, but he's moving himself up. But this battle between the Team Indycars, which started really on lap 1, is far from over. Sho Suboi being super defensive, and that is really costing him. Sho Suboi's last lap, 16.8. His teammate was also, of course, a 16.8. The lap before, his teammate was a 15.8. It's costing him a second a lap.
And Ishira not getting around. this time around yet. I think Ishira really needed to actually make that position and make that overtake work first time around. Otherwise, it's that truly train conundrum where you get kind of locked into the rear light and the diffuser of the car ahead, and you almost get locked into a kind of a set kind of lap time, set certain moves. So you need to make overtakes as quick as possible. The gap as it stands for the moment between Cassidy leading this race and Sho Suboi, who's third, is 33 seconds. It's not quite enough. It'll be thereabouts, but again, you have to take into account it's not just the time you lose in the pits, it's also the time you lose out on track on the outlap when you're actually trying to get back up to speed. But they're back in the mid 1 minute 16, Sam, but Cassidy's still doing a 1 minute 16.0, adding a little bit of time here and there. It's not a huge gain by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just bit by bit by bit by bit. I think Cassidy will definitely have the makings of Hirakawa at this point, if nothing else.
We'll keep an eye on those roll hoops. Sho Suboi, he's got no overtaking system left. That light's gone out, and his teammate behind him, the light's gone red, so there's not much light there either. So we are looking at the battle between Ishira and Sho Suboi, and it is going to be, I think, this battle. I'd be on the radio if I was the team director at this point and telling the guys, look, you are throwing the race away here, guys. One of you would have a chance to win the race. At the moment, you are gifting this race to Nick Cassidy.
They're still losing time to the drivers just ahead, as we see. And Nick Cassidy did drop a little bit of time. I noticed, but he was losing a little bit of time, and that's probably because he's coming up behind Oshima in 15th place. And I mentioned this actually a few moments ago, just before Ishira pitted, that 6 seconds up the road was actually traffic, the beginnings of lapped traffic. If that was Cassidy, you either cleared his field quickly or you get straight into the pits. Because otherwise, you're just he's going to lose loads of time stuck behind Oshima now.
But at the moment, the gap for Cassidy is marginal, that he wouldn't come out in the middle of this battle on cold tyres and immediately get mugged. He's got to keep pushing. Sho Suboi is now pushing super hard on those really old tyres. He's got to get a bit more of a gap, but his lap times are beginning to go out now as Cassidy, so he's going to have to pit very soon, and he's going to be fired straight back into the middle of this battle at the moment, I think.
Cassidy lost 0.8 of a second on that lap stuck behind Oshima. He needs to clear the rookie racing car as soon as possible if he's to make this strategy work. The gap to Suboi is 33.8 seconds. The gap to Ishira is 34.5. 36.1 is Hirakawa in 5th place. He needs to do it here. He needs to get past Oshima. And Oshima pulls out of the way, so good job by the
and Cassidy. Cassidy was not happy. There was some gesticulating in New Zealandish out of the cockpit there. I won't translate it for the rest of the world. It was rather rude.
Of course, the other aspect of Cassidy really wanting to charge is this is what's looking like his last season in Super Formula before he moves to Formula E next year, and he really wants a big charge to keep his title that he won in 2019 and won very well ahead of Naoki Yamamoto, as we see the Ing cars still battling. I think Ishira has actually lost the momentum now, Sam. I think so. Suboi may have done enough to actually nail that, but the gap to Cassidy isn't extending anymore. Yes, Cassidy lost a little bit of time behind Oshima, but unfortunately he's also going to be quite close to Takaboshi as well. So I think Cassidy needs to pit soon just to actually make sure he doesn't lose too much time to those who've already pitted.
Well, that back marker was really costly for Cassidy because he still hasn't quite got the gap out to what would be safe for a pit stop. He needs that sort of 35, 36 seconds, and he hasn't quite got that. Nearly got it. He's got 33, but as it looks like, if my maths are correct, he's going to filter back into the field just behind these two Ing cars, but really only just behind. But then he'll be on completely cold tyres. He'll drop back and have to be, and then very quickly be mugged by Hirakawa and Sekiguchi in the Team Impul cars. But then he's fresh tyres.
Yamamoto as well, actually.
Yeah, but then he'll have to race back on those fresh tyres, and he'll have to have a mighty scrap to get back through, which is lovely. 16 minutes to go as well.
That's the other aspect, Sam. 16 minutes is not a long time to actually put yourself a plan to overtake 5 cars if you need to. He's lapping in around 1 minute 16s at the moment, so we will just hit that 50 lap mark before the clock goes out. As we see Kunimoto on screen there, 9.1 seconds behind Cassidy. Doing a solid job, as I said earlier on, considering he started 18th on the grid. If he gets a pit and goes, well, I think he could still be top 7, Sam.
Yeah, he's racing for points. He's not racing for the win here. I guess he's racing Naoki Yamamoto and Nire Fukuzumi, the 2 Dandelion Racing cars, and also Miata in the other Vantolin Team Tons car. I think he's going to be ahead of him. So that's the battle that Kunimoto's having. He's having a slightly private race with nobody else, in the front really involved. Cassidy, though, is he's still setting relatively okay lap times, but he is now losing time to Sho Suboi, who really has picked up the pace. Sho Suboi's found a second wind in those tyres and is putting much quicker laps in. Cassidy's going to have to stop. 11 laps to go. When did the pit window close? I can't remember what the rule was on that.
It's just penultimate lap.
So Cassidy's got a bit more scope.
You can run these right to lap 49, and that's when you have to pit at that time.
Well, this race is good, isn't it? I quite enjoy this one. This is rather entertaining. Bit of strategy.
Just a note, Sam, actually, for a driver on his first ever Super Formula race who qualified on the front row. Yes, he had a bad start, but Miata actually done a relatively solid job once the race actually got underway. He's currently 9th place. That will he'll still be in the points when this race finishes, but not too far. It may work out that he'll be about 20 seconds off the lead when this race does finish. So a solid job actually by Miata on his first race in Super Formula. As we see Nick Cassidy and the guys in the pit lane, I just wonder if Tom's cars guys are going to be coming out very, very, very soon.
Well, if you're watching this, 4,500 of you online at the moment. I know there's a lot more of you around the world. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and bring that big thank you to Charles Edward Cheese. Not only do you have a wonderful name, you have wonderful taste. Thanks for joining the channel. And we need to get a lot more. Smash that like button much quicker. The tyres for this series, the questions coming in from Danny.com, Yokohama's. And so big thank you again to Charles Edward Cheese. And how much does Super Formula Drive cost for the season? I've been informed that it's about €2 million. Might be a bit more than that per year to race in this championship. And we should go race distance here. Another clarification has come in, something I wasn't aware of actually, and I misunderstood, quite frankly. That's come in from Japan. The lights on the roll hoops of the cars are delayed by 8 seconds because the race organisers felt that it was too easy for the leading car to see what the trailing car was doing and defend. So actually the driver can hit the overtake boost system and then the light will only flash a little bit later, 8 seconds later, so they can be a little bit mugged in the dark before the lights start flashing, which is quite interesting. Nice decision.
Interesting to note, Sam, Hirakawa's pace is beginning to drop off a bit. Now, the gap between Cassidy and Hirakawa has extended back out to 36 seconds. So Cassidy is probably now at the point when he can maybe pit and just get out ahead of Hirakawa. Projected at this stage, probably looking at 3rd place, but with only 8 laps left, if he's going to make use of absolutely fresh tyres and go after the Yinging tyres, the pit stop has to be now. It may already actually be too late. But I think it might be.
I think it might be almost too late. He was obviously trying to build up that gap. He's losing too much time. He needs to come to pit road because we've seen it takes about a lap to get up to temperature. Otherwise, you get absolutely mugged by the pack on hot tyres. Even though those tyres are worn out, these Yokohamas have got life. I mean, we've seen them ebb and flow. Nobody's tyres have completely fallen away, to ridiculous levels. Cassidy's, in fact, haven't. He's still on those tyres he started the race on, and still running decent lap times.
Well, one of the secrets behind Cassidy winning the title last year was his brilliant tyre preservations. I mean, the Team Tom's guys struggled with qualifying quite a lot throughout the 2019 season, actually some of the previous seasons to that as well. They made results work by actually getting their tyres to the end and making everything absolutely last while still holding quite a solid pace. Quite reminiscent, it must be said, to Scott Dixon in IndyCar.
I think Red Bull have made a massive howler by not putting this lad in Formula One.
Because Cassidy was a Red Bull junior driver several years ago when he was in Formula 3 with Euro International and Carlin for a bit. So he's been there, done that, and will move in to electric racing next year. It will be a shame to not see him in Super Formula anymore, but moving onwards and upwards, as they say, as Cassidy. It's another lap in the early 1:16, still doing a very, very, very good job.
I don't think we know for certain that Cassidy isn't going to be in Super Formula next year. All we know he is going to be in Formula E, but he hasn't confirmed the rest of his programme. And I think he is contemplating double duty. In fact, I know he is. You can see that blister on his right front tyre, but it's not slowing him down much. And the way he's using the overtake system to get lap time here is quite clever and will definitely net him a load of points. But he does need to make that pit stop. And 10 minutes to go, 6 laps to go, frankly, and he's still not done it. He's got to do it now.
Sam, do you think he's actually settled in his head for a net 3rd place, just in order to actually get ahead of Hirakawa?
No, I don't think he has, Leigh, because it's too close at the front. The gap's not big enough. Slotting in ahead of Hirakawa. Hirakawa's not that far behind. You know, it's only 3.6 seconds down on those 2 Inging cars, and you know, with cold tyres just ahead of him, he's very vulnerable to the rear. Sakaguchi and Yamamoto are right there as well with Hirakawa, so you could lose an awful lot of places by getting caught out on cold tyres. 5 laps to go now. You're watching round 2, the 2020 Super Formula Championship on the-race.com. Rev TV Canada, and Vantolin Team Tom's driver Nick Cassidy is leading the race, but he has to come to the pit lane. You can see that blister on the right front tyre. He has to stop. The question is, where will he come back out in the chasing pack? That is going to define the close of this really quite unpredictable and thrilling race, and he's really fighting in the car there, Leigh.
I think he's. I saw a few moments ago Hirakawa also struggling, the back end sliding out. The issue really on Cassidy's car, as you said, it was the right front tire, which is really beginning to wear. We saw that a lot in Motegi as well. The right front tires taking an absolute beating. But as you see the gap there, 37.2 seconds of Hirakawa. This is going to be neck and neck. Again, as I said a few moments ago, as we see it's an overtake in the rear. That is Sakaguchi being challenged by Yamamoto, wheel to wheel, not quite happening in this instance. Sakaguchi holding position. Hirakawa just ahead of them in the Yamamoto really challenging hard. We saw this from Yamamoto last time out of Motegi as well. When he's really desperately pushing for an overtake, he really likes to throw his car around. But will he be able to get past Sakaguchi? There's only 4 and a bit laps left, Sam.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a little unpredictable now. What is Cassidy's and Vantolin Team Tom's thinking? I mean, if Cassidy wins this or gets on the podium, I'm going to be fascinated to hear what his team says. I think they're going to go to the penultimate lap and then just have one desperate cling on to the opposition lap on cold tyres. I think that's what they're going to try and do. Kurimoto as well, of course, has to stop from 2nd position, which puts Sho Suboi and Ishira in the Inging cars, the real battle for the race lead.
Of course, there's only a small gap between Sho Suboi and Ishira as well. So, well, yeah, it's just a second between the 2 Inging cars.
Yeah, oh,
yes, here we go. Here we go.
That's Team Tom's.
That's
getting ready for Nick Cassidy. There is Nick Cassidy. He knows where the pit lane is. He visit.
He will have 3 laps, 3 blasts to make sure he can get ahead. I still think it's probably not enough to beat Ishira and Suboi at this point, but I think he will have a good advantage, a solid enough advantage to get ahead of Hirokawa and just survive maybe a lap on cold tyres. We shall see, hopefully, in a few moments' time as Cassidy powers down the back straight into the hairpin right-hander.
You know, they would have got onto the radio to him now. In Formula One, to Lewis Hamilton, be racing at Sochi later. All the news and stuff on that from the-race.com. Check it out. They will be on the radio saying hammer time, or in New Zealandish, you know, we need you to do some qualifying now, laps please, because it's very bright in New Zealand.
Kiwi time, I think it's...
yeah, Kiwi time. There we go. Cassidy Kiwi time. That is what the message has gone out. He's pumping in the best sectors he can. I think at the end of this lap, he should dive into the pits, and he doesn't.
No,
Thank you, Nick, for making me look a little bit silly.
But
because
Sam,
he's put in a brilliant lap time.
He's put his fastest lap of the race. His fastest lap of the race, a woman 15.7. That is a stunning lap from Nick Cassidy. He's pulled out the guts of most of a second over Hirokawa that time out.
I mean, he doesn't know he needs to stop. You don't think his radio is broken or something?
No, I think he knows what he's doing. I think you're right. I think what you mentioned a few moments ago, they're probably going to push it as absolutely late as humanly possible. So the latest he can stop is at the end of lap 49. That is the absolute latest he can stop. But we're on lap 48 at the moment.
Yeah.
And that would give him the last lap to... actually fend off Hirokawa, etc. But the gap to Hirokawa is now 38 seconds. Another lap like this, I think he's probably close to doing enough. And he has just set his best first sector as well. So it's actually on that he can still beat Hirokawa out on just the pit stop and not really have to worry as much about losing time on cold tyres. He's in the pit lane now, Sam. He's in the pit lane now.
Yeah, and this is a crucial pit stop for Cassidy, so he's going to have a little qualifying run on the back of this, and it's going to be straight up a qualifying run for Cassidy.
2 laps to go after this, Sam. He'll have 2 laps on these tyres.
Yeah, so it'll be the out lap and then the flying lap, and that's it. It's the same strategy for Kunimoto, who closed right up on the back of Cassidy, actually. And let's watch this stop.
You know, I think Kunimoto's going to be close to Yamamoto when they come out, but Cassidy... Solid stop, a little bit slow. Oh, slow on the left front, and then slow again with the jack coming away.
Yeah.
That'll cause. Here's the Ing cars. Here's the Ing cars now.
There's Kunimoto.
Speed. No, that is Hirokawa. That is Hirokawa just behind. So the gap is... It's
Hirokawa. Keep an eye on Hirokawa, because Hirokawa is on those hot tyres. He's going to come storming up to the back of Cassidy very, very quickly. In the next couple of corners, you'll see him right on the back of Cassidy. Here's the battle for the lead now. It's the Inging cars. There's Cassidy. He's got the overtaking system available to him. There is the Team Impel car, the white NX liveried car. And look at the number 20 is screaming up on the back of Cassidy, desperately trying to get some tyre temperature. His only hope is getting that tyre temperature in and that overtaking system that he's got almost the full capacity's worth of. His lights are still green and everybody else's lights are red or out altogether. Cassidy has got to fight for this 3rd position. This is crucial for championship points.
And it's sluggish, and so much so, I think he lost approximately 3 seconds on that pit stop, Sam, which would have actually dropped him right behind Ishira in 2nd place. He would have also lost time on the out lap, but it would have given him a far greater cushion to Hirokawa. Hirokawa is less than a second behind Cassidy now as we come into the final lap of this race. Sho Suboi leads, Ishira 2nd, Cassidy 3rd, Hirokawa 4th, Sekiguchi 5th, Yamamoto 6th. Kunimoto, by the way, came out in 7th place, pretty much as we predicted. And he's 10 seconds or so behind Yamamoto. So that's a solid job so far by Kunimoto, considering he started down in 18th place.
Well, here's the leading pair. There's the battle for 3rd position. Cassidy has managed to just keep the gap vaguely safe ahead of Hirokawa in 4th position, but closing the gap ever so slightly for the race lead. Ishira is just getting a tad closer to Sho Suboi. He's got a bit of overtaking boost left. Is he going to use it on Suboi at this point? There's Sho Suboi in the race lead. He looks in solid position, but his teammate is looming large in those wing mirrors. Battle down the field, that's Miyata fighting through the order to get up onto the back of the points. Nire Fukuzumi just back ahead of him. We went back to the race leaders there, which threw me for a second because one of the cars vanished. But it is Sho Suboi who's going to win this one. Round 2 of the 2020 Super Formula Championship. It's a 1-2 for the JMS Project Muse Tsurumo Team Ingen cars.
And that's a first race.
Goes to Nick Cassidy.
That is a first Super Formula win for Sho Suboi as well. As we see Hirakawa take fourth, Sekiguchi nails fifth, just ahead of Yamamoto. We will see Yuji Kunimoto come through to seventh now. That's a good 4 points for him. Eighth place is Nirei Fukuzumi, then Miyata ninth, 2 points on his debut, while Nojiri takes 10th and the final points position in the race.
Well, that was the fastest lap of the race of anybody, unsurprisingly, by Nick Cassidy.
Nakayama takes 11th place there, while Sukakushi took 12th. Sasahara 13th in his second weekend. Slightly more anonymous round, I really think, for Sasahara that time round. But, wow, Mitsunori Takaboshi is 14th. He is just not far, actually, only 0.4 of a second ahead of Toshiki Oyu, who came home 15th. 16th, and the final finisher is Kazuya Oshima, the rookie racing entry. Only 16 runners, and several cars taken out right at the very start of that race, Sam, but we got some action late on. Very, very tense race, I think. And you can see how delighted Sho Suboi is. His first Super Formula win. And the breakthrough, really, he was looking for after getting just a single podium last year.
Nick Cassidy's fastest lap there in the race, let's remember it's the race, would have put him 6th on the grid for the 1995 Pacific Grand Prix, just ahead of Eddie Irvine's Jordan Peugeot, and just behind Gerhard Berger's Ferrari. Just an interesting little speed comparison if you want to know how fast Super Formula cars are. That fast.
Anyway. Oh, wow.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed that, because I have. I thought that was great.
We'll have a full podium this week, Sam.
We will. We'll have a podium. There's going to be a podium ceremony, so stay with us for that. If you've watched Super GT before, you will know the podium ceremonies are quite lively in Japan, and it's no different in Super Formula. As the photographers, lots of them. Not much social distancing going on there. We'll have words. But the great result there for Project Mu Team Ingen. Couldn't be better. Sho Suboi takes victory. His teammate in second position. Third, good for Nick Cassidy. So I think we're going to have 3 happy people on the podium. We should be hearing from Nick Cassidy post-race. It doesn't always work out that way, but we'll see who we get in terms of interviews. But if you've enjoyed this as much as I have, because I really have, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. We'll stay with you for a little while longer. Coming up, though, later today, live esports racing, the second round of the Indy Pro Championship by FSR, racing virtually at the Portland International Raceway. But don't forget, because I'm about to head off to the studio to do that, is the Russian Grand Prix from Sochi. It's going to be a bit of a thrilling opening lap there. Brilliant piece by Mark Hughes on the-race.com about the opening lap and what to expect. Sho Suboi is definitely going to be tuning into that one. That's why he's got a number 1 up on his finger. And then next weekend, live on this channel, British GT round 7 and 8 from Snetterton in Norfolk. That's where Alex Brundle lives. That's the 4th of October. And then before that, Super GT round 5. We're back to Fuji Speedway, also on the 4th of October. And Mandala's Video Stash says, thanks for the stream, first time watching Super Formula. Well, stay tuned and watch the podium ceremony with us. Sho Suboi hugging his mechanics, looking very happy. The JLP race officials will try and manage the podium to be sensible. Photographers on there.
Suboi jumps straight into second in the championship, in fact, with Sam. Hirakawa still leads. Hirakawa's lead in the championship actually extends. He's now on 34 points, with Sho Suboi second in the standings with 20. So his gap is now 14 points. Then third in the standings is Ishira. After that podium finish, he's 18 points. Then next up is Yamashita and Nick Cassidy, both locked on 16 points. And then Fenestras next in the standings with 14 points.
I'll be very disappointed if those little podium cupboards that have been wheeled out onto the starting grid there with the bottles of water and the caps and the towels on are not robotic. Formula One raced the game with those podium robots, and it's disappointing they haven't returned. There's Nick Cassidy saying he tried his best, didn't quite make it work. And a few other congrats coming in, the Inging team. Bada binge, thank you for watching, and thank you all for tuning in.
And don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yeah, we've still got podium action coming. Brand new face mask there for the drivers, of course. Nick Cassidy's employed his. He seems to manage to put it over his eyes. His face mask usage is about as good as his champagne bottle spray. He needs to get it under his chin. There you go, Nick. That's how you put on a face mask. Different demonstration is very cool to show how it's done.
I was trying to say, like,
The Japanese drivers haven't quite got that ready yet.
politely on the radio. So, by the way, in 4 laps,
Not
I
quite
need
sure if
blue
you can hear what
flag.
he's saying.
Okay. In 2 laps, I need blue flag. And then, blue flag is not there. Blue flag is not there. Yes, we are talking. I said, well, talk more. No, nothing.
So he's talking about the time he lost behind that back marker. We saw it in the race, and he was saying the blue flag's not there. He was on the radio saying, and they said, we're talking to them, and he's saying, we want to talk more. We'll talk more. I need to get by. I need the blue flags for this guy. So that was that conversation, and that's really what cost Nick Cassidy the win here today, I think, or certainly a shout at the win.
Well, that in the pit stop, because he lost about a second behind, actually probably more than that, maybe a second and a half behind Oshima, and then he lost another 3 seconds in the pit stop with a slow left rear tire change. So I mean that's nearly 5 seconds, basically accountable.
And that's made the difference.
Yeah, and it's not necessary. That's not no guarantee that he would have come out and won. But it may have given him an opportunity. It may have actually brought him out ahead of Ishira, Shosuboya, at least given him a shot to actually make an overtake for the win. But
Well, the first,
he's the race winner, Shosuboya, his first Super Formula win.
the first question to Shosuboy is, will the race be, this channel be streaming the next Super Formula race? Absolutely. Shosuboy says this channel screens every single round of the Super Formula Championship and the Super GT Championship and British GT Championship and many other wonderful things. So hit like and subscribe. Meanwhile, Shosuboy in his Felix 88 mask says,
Well, he's not saying anything at the minute.
well, I know, I was waiting to hear what the question is about battling your teammate.
いや本当に最後の最後まで気が抜けないレースだったので、石原選手が真後ろに
And Shosuboy saying it was actually quite thrilling. Almost as thrilling as a nice cup of tea on a quaint Sunday afternoon.
You live an exciting life, Mr. Gorman.
Yeah, I do. I'm actually one of the most thrilling people you've ever met.
I know, right? You genuinely are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what that says about our lives. Meanwhile, as we sit here talking about incredibly fast racing drivers doing incredibly fast racing and incredibly fast battles, Shosuboy winning out on this occasion.
Yeah, exactly. The Yokohama on his cap. Yokohama did do a great job on these tyres in Super Formula, actually. A bit too good in some situations, but new rules here, I think, worked out quite well. Perhaps it was down to that safety car, but nonetheless, it did work out. Now, questions to the team boss, or has she decided against that option? No, she's going in with the Tsurumo team boss.
The rumor I understood at the beginning of the year, Sam, is Yokohama are working on what is effectively a form of super soft tire. Last year, there was 2 tire compounds, a soft and a medium. And really, as you just said, the tyres are almost too good. So they were working on a super soft tyre, I'm led to believe, but didn't really come across a compound that was really worked for them. So I'm not sure if that has been shelved completely, though, or if it's still something that Yokohama are working on in the background to introduce in a later season. We shall see.
They're definitely still working on it. Definitely.
This is only the second round of 7, Sam, at Okayama. We will be back in 3 weeks' time for the third round at Sportsland Sugo, and then Autopolis for round 4 on the 15th of November, then a double header at Suzuka for December 5th and 6th. That's rounds 5 and 6 before the season ends at Fuji Speedway on December the 20th. An early Christmas present for you all.
And that race on December the 20th will be a very festive JAF Grand Prix, the Japan Auto Federation Grand Prix, a very prestigious annual event that takes place, as every annual event does, takes place every year, usually at Fuji Speedway. But there's the race result. Sho Suboi won it from Ishira, Cassidy, Hirakawa, Takiguchi, Yamamoto, Kunimoto, Fukuzumi, Miyata, and Nojiri. But the gaps at the front tell the story. That back marker costing Nick Cassidy a chance at victory. Could he have done it? Hard to say, but he certainly was in with a shout. First to third, all down to a blue team rookie, Dallara.
There the point scorers, and for the other drivers who finished in this race, Yuichi Nakayama came home 11th in the Team KCMG car. 12th was Kudai Koshi in the Drago racing car, as we see those results come up on screen now. Ukyo Sasahara started 13th, finished 13th for Team Mugen. Mitsunori Takaboshi finished 14th for the Buzz Racing with B-Max M3 Motor Park. Good job for him. Toshiki Oyu had a bit of a clattering at the start, and probably one of the primary causes of the accident we saw in turn 1. It was 15th place, and Kazuyu Oshima 16th for Rookie Racing. There's the points on screen, as I mentioned already. Hirakawa 34 points, leading from Sho Suboi with 20, then Ishira with 18, then Yamashita and Cassidy with 16 points. Fenestras 14th, he went out in turn 1. Fukuzumi with 9 points. Nakajima 8 points, he wasn't racing today as he is in quarantine. And just the final 3 entries, none of these actually finished this race. Sasha Fenestras was taken out in turn 1 in the melee caused by Oyu. Tadasuke Makino, he didn't finish, and Sena Sakaguchi crashed on a warm-up lap. And we see here the highlights from the race. That is Sakaguchi's car crashing on a warm-up lap, one of the strangest incidents we've ever seen. Then the actual race start proper. Hirakawa led well while Miyata got a slow start. Makino went to the inside, and then Oyu locked up, clipped into Fenestras, who then hit Makino, and then brought out a long safety car as cars scrambled around the damaged cars. A horrible day for Kondo Racing, both cars out before even the first turn was completed. Then it was a battle between Sho Suboi and Ryo Hirakawa in the early laps of the race, with Sho Suboi gaining an early advantage before the pit stops. And meanwhile, further down the order, this was the number 16 car getting passed by Miyata, a recovering Miyata, and Naoki Yamamoto. Meanwhile, out front, Ishira led the way, set some great stops before pitting late on, and actually gave himself enough time to come out ahead of Sho Suboi and Hirakawa in the background there. Sorry, that was, and then it was Ishira battling against Sho Suboi. Sho Suboi eventually got ahead, took the lead of the race, and then defended stoutly the rest of the laps as Nick Cassidy stayed out, and I mean stayed out, not stopping until the end of lap 48 of the 50, but it was a slow change of the left front tyre, cost him several seconds, brought him out a few seconds behind the leading pair of Ingen cars, and put him under pressure from Hirakawa, who was in 4th place. But Sho Suboi continued to lead the race and went on to win ahead of teammate Hiroki Ishira. Nick Cassidy made the final spot on the podium, 3rd place after qualifying 10th, as we see the 3 leading cars on the grid there waiting for the celebrations.
Did you drop something in your excitement there, just Leigh?
No.
Oh, okay. That was a great race, I think. I think
it was a very
intense big
race,
step
Sam.
forwards. I think it was there. You can see that winking girl on the 39 car that I was talking about during the race very clearly.
Yes.
So that is the difference between those 2 cars in terms of the paint job, which makes it very, very hard to tell them apart sometimes when we are doing the commentary. But keep an eye out for her eye, because that's how we tell them. The mechanics are looking for it as well. They're trying to work out which car they're looking at, because it's difficult for them too. I think this longer race distance worked well.
I think it actually, yeah, it did work very well. As look, we have to accept we're in a position where we're not going to have refueling for the time being, at least, as the pandemic continues around the world. So I think the actual extension of 21 kilometers from the previous round of Motegi has actually worked out very, very, very well. As we see it's actually been a quite day, 20 to 21 degrees Celsius and light wind, so it wasn't too taxing from that point of view for the drivers. But I think last race around at Motegi was probably too short to really to make tyre strategy work. This has been the right length, probably the right length you could run a race without fuel becoming an issue.
Exactly. I was just writing to our producer, but I'm going to start trolling him on air. Actually, I think they've actually lost the podium. We should have a podium ceremony about now. The racing drivers all vanished, but there's no sign of a podium at the moment. We should be seeing trophies, sparkling sake, and general Japanese race podiumness. But instead, we're getting some close-ups of tyres. There's a tyre with some marbles that it's run over.
I think that's the other aspect of this race, Sam, is we haven't seen the tyre wear, the really excessive tyre wear that we saw at Motegi last time out. And a lot of that did have to do with the difference in temperatures. It was 40 degrees Celsius when we were at Motegi last time out. And that is, quite a significant temperature for anyone to race in. You could really see it on the faces of the drivers when they got out of their cars last time out. This has been a much, much calmer day in terms of temperature and climate. So it's been a help for the drivers. It's been a help for really everything in the cars.
They're going to need jumpers for the last 3 rounds of the year, I think. Really looking forward to that double header at Suzuka. Same race weekend. Oh, they found the podium. They found the podium. That's why they're celebrating. Nothing to do with a race win. They've actually found the podium. Toyota Gazoo Racing single flag technique. Well done. Good work there from Shosuboi. He gets it. Oh. He gets a 6-sided shape with some leaves on. Is that a 7-sided shape? Did I miscount?
Hiroki Ishira there, second place as Nick Cassidy, reigning champion, third on this third step on the podium. Reasonable job from Cassidy considering where he qualified, and he'll want to be on the top step again very, very soon as the national anthem of Japan rings out at Okayama. Tell you what, I did mention that it was quite cool today. The drivers still look as if they've had a hell of a workout.
They do. They certainly do. Cassidy looks a bit more together. That's possibly because he's just mucking about on Instagram. In fact, they're all mucking about on Instagram now. So you'll see those pictures on Instagram at some point. Nick Cassidy's on Instagram permanently. I think he's either on his mountain bike or he's on Instagram. Very small trophies here for third position. You get a bigger trophy for winning some kart races, but it is a nice. I like the glass trophy. It's quite. I always felt they're quite classy. She likes them too. She's a big fan. Shosuboi. She got the flag, but she got a better flag than he did. The Gazoo racing flags are cool, but the Team Ingame ones are really cool.
I think possibly the most disappointed driver out of all of this, Sam, is probably going to be Hirakawa, considering how dominant he was in qualifying to take that pole position, to come away with a 4th place, maybe a little bit miffed at that. And he, considering as well, he was leading in the early laps of that race.
Well, there's the Okayama hexagon he gets to take home. We'll treasure that bit of hexagon. So now the drivers stand on the paddock. Yeah. He's on Facebook Live now. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. We need to tell, that's what he's doing. He's watching us live and hitting like and subscribe on the-race.com, leaving his comments, and now doing some more photos, waving those glass trophies. This one, it really is very small, isn't it, for third position?
Yeah, that's certainly for the least little fitness luggage.
Yeah. That's a good point, yeah. I mean, the normal way to get back from Okayama to Tokyo would be on the Shinkansen, but under the COVID protocols, I think the drivers all have to drive themselves or be driven back on a team bus. Not allowed to use public transport to keep themselves COVID-free. And they're all a little bit lost on the podium because Nick Cassidy, we know he's sometimes has issues with his bottle and early release of the cork and on the podium, and I don't think that's going to be an issue here. I'm not sure if there are bottles available to spray around. So no, they're not. So that's a relief for Cassidy. He doesn't get to worry about that. Oh, there are the bottles.
They get to take them. Just to drink, actually.
Yeah. The next race, it's at Sportsland Sugo, one of my favourite tracks in Japan. 18th of October here on the-race.com. It's going to be really rather special, that one. Sportsland Sugo has always produced great racing. Make note that Michael Schumacher, when he was coming up through the ranks of St. Juniors Racing, decided to travel to Japan to race in this championship at Sportsland Sugo. I think that tells you something. And every driver who's raced there says that track is a really, really special one. And it produces just mad racing. Well, I think it's been a great race weekend so far, Leo Gorman.
Yeah, it's actually been great fun. Very, very enjoyable race. Very, very tense. Maybe not the absolute huge action we would normally expect from Super Formula. I think all that action was squeezed into the opening corner, to be frankly honest. But there's a picture of the gravel trap which actually had a lot of the action in it. But it was a very, very, very tense race thereafter, and some very, very good driving from the Indycar and Cassidy as well to get the podium positions.
Yeah, and it's great to see. The landscape of Japan always captures my eye. And when you see those beautiful, they're Italian-built racing cars lining up on a starting grid like that, it's just something special about motor racing in Japan. And if you enjoy Japanese motor racing, then this is absolutely the YouTube channel for you. We have Super GT live and in full every single race. We have Super Formula live and in full every single race, including the Sportsland Sugo round of Super Formula, which is the next round up. So hit like and definitely hit subscribe for that. But there's loads more content on the channel. We've got British GT, we've got esports. There's probably truck racing at some point because that seems to happen when it happens. I've lost track of how much good stuff there is on the channel. So it's going to be a really, really good thing for you to do, to say like, subscribe, and also leave your comments. We love to read your comments during the race. And as the sun sets over Okayama, the highlight reel rolls. Some men in masks talked, a man pulled on his crash helmet, a bird did some flying, a race got started, a driver crashed, took out his teammate, a man got sarcastic at a chain link fence, and there were some flashing lights, some battling Itasha cars, a pit stop eventually. Some tyres wore out, but a race win was won, 1 and 2. Sho Suboi, winner of the second round of the 2020 Super Formula Championship. Thanks for joining us here on The Race. Join us again for round 3.